Okay, I think it's 9:05, so we're getting ready to start. Good morning, everyone. Just a second, get ourselves all situated. Okay, we're calling to order. Well, welcome, everyone. Welcome to the May 4th. This might be too loud. Usually I don't need a mic. May 4th. 2023 California Board of Behavioral Sciences meeting. Good morning, everyone. My name is Max Disposti, pronounced HMS. I'm the chairperson of the board. Before we convene, I would like to remind everyone that is present that the board is a consumer protections agency that is charged with administering and enforcing the board laws. Where protections to the public is inconsistent with other interests sought to be promoted, the protections to the public shall be paramount. For each agenda item, there will be a chance for the public to offer comments. Each commentator will have 3 minutes to comment. Obviously not today because we have the petition hearing. But members, during the roll call, please introduce yourself. And if you're a licensee, a public member, and Christina, please, can you call the roll call? I missed Christina. Hi. Good morning to you. Thank you.
Present, Vice Chair, LEP member.
Present, Chair, public member.
Present, LMFT, pronouns he, him.
Present, public member.
Present, public member, pronouns he, him.
Present, public member.
Thank you, Christina. And we're moving to item 2 of the agenda items, which is suggestions for future agenda items. I are to my board and then to the audience. Today I can't speak. Are there any future agenda item suggestions that the board members would like to propose at this moment? Yes, Dr. Walker.
Yes, thank you. I may be premature, but at some point before the next board member election, I hope I can make this request now, that we review the process and trainings that are available to board members who may be interested in seeking a chair or vice chair position.
I love that. Yeah, we do have the vote tomorrow for the new elections, but yeah.
So familiar with the process. So before it happens again, I feel I have the opportunity to really know
What is like, how does it work? Okay, maybe if,
before taking the vote.
we could definitely, we always do, that rightfully so, we do always do an introductions before the vote goes on, how it works, the expectations, absolutely. That's our duty to do so.
But by that time, you miss the opportunity to train for the vote.
Oh, that's what you're saying. Okay. Okay, noted. Thank you, Dr. Walker. Anyone else? Yes.
Point of clarification, Mr. Chair, may we also propose new agenda items tomorrow? If so, I can defer mine till tomorrow.
Yes,
Thanks.
you can do that, absolutely. This is mostly for today. Thank you, though. Anyone else from the board? Anyone else from our audience today? Okay, we're good. We closed the agenda items and we're moving to the public comments for items that are not in the agenda. This is the time where board members or members of the audience can speak freely about any concerns they might have around any issues that obviously affect the BBS. The board will not be able to engage with the audience or other board members to address any comments that's been made, but it's an opportunity for sharing and caring. So We can open this. If there are any board members that they have public comments for items not in the agenda. Yes, Susan.
I know this probably sounds weird to many of you, but I'm just wondering if we could just talk about where we have the meetings, because I know we're supposed to be meeting all over the state. And I was having a conversation with Steve this morning about, well, why don't we go to San Luis Obispo? And there are other places in this state that maybe we should be, especially since the legislature has suddenly woken up to the fact that universities and colleges have to have mental health counselors available for all the students. So it's kind of a constituency that we haven't really been able to hear so much from. And I'm wondering if also we might even talk about when we have the meetings, only because I'm probably the only person on this board who cares about having meetings in August, because that's when kids go back to school in September, so that's when families have vacation. So every August, I miss a meeting.
Thank you for that comment. Are there any other observations, comments, and that the board would like to share in general? I don't see anyone. Anyone from the audience? Okay, wonderful. Thank you all. That will conclude our public comments for items not in the agenda. We're moving now. Yes, Christina. Yes. No, absolutely not. You would like to start from there? Okay. I'm the only one that's loud, I can tell. Right? Maybe I shouldn't. Check. I did. Yes. We're not broadcasting yet, so we need a 5 minutes break before we go into the hearing session. Yes. Okay, we are recessing 5 minutes, which that will be 9:20.
Testing, testing. Oh, it's working. It's
One,
working now.
two, 1, 2.
Testing. Mine's working too.
Okay, it's working.
Yes.
Okay, welcome back. We're resuming our public portion of this meeting. My name is Max Disposti. I'm the board chair of the Board of Behavioral Sciences. Today is May 4th, 2023. The time is 9:16. We're now opening the petitioner hearing. This is, at this time, we can, is the time when we begin the petitioner hearing. Our judge here, Abraham Levy, did I say it right?
You got it.
I got it. And he's the one actually that will take the floor from now on, introduce the petitioners, and share with us the procedures for today and what to expect. So thank you.
Thank you.
Judge.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As the Chairman just mentioned, my name's Abe Levy. I'm an administrative law judge with the Office of Administrative Hearings of the state of California. And my role here today on the 4 petitions for early termination is to address any evidentiary issues, develop the record for each of the petitioners, and give each of the petitioners the opportunity to present their respective cases, as well as the Mr. Alvaro, who's representing Mr. Mejia, who's representing the Attorney General, or the interest of the public interest. So I'm going to be calling in the following order the petitions as follows. First, we'll start with Leah Lynn French. Then we'll proceed with Jaron Daniel Haynes. Then Leah Sue Edwards and Kellyanne Janae Martinez. I note up front that the parties have submitted documents through the digital online platform Case Center, and I take it everyone has access to these proposed exhibits, and we'll go through the exhibits in each case and see if there's any objections. With that, and then the thing I should mention, I think it's important to mention, is that there won't be a decision on these petitions today. The board will, after the submissions of all 4 petitions, will go into closed session and conduct deliberations, and written decisions will be issued after today. With that, why don't we begin? Like I said, we'll start with the first petition. Leah, and excuse me for mispronouncing anybody's name here, Leah Lynn French. Give me 1 second here. I just want to orient myself for 1 brief second. Ms. French and counsel, can I have your name, counsel? I'm sorry.
Yes, Kenneth Drake, D-R-A-K-E.
Can I get the spelling again, sir? I'm sorry.
Kenneth Drake, D-R-A-K-E.
Okay. All these years of listening to rock and roll, my hearing, I think, is starting to fail me. At least that's my excuse. So we'll start. So we're on the record in the matter of Leah Lynn French, OAH case number 2023-040-363, agency case number 200-2018-000-514. Today is May 4th, 2023, and this matter is taking place before a quorum of the Board of Behavioral Sciences in the city of Orange, California. As I mentioned, my role today in this matter is to address any evidentiary issues and develop the record. And in that regard, I'm going to identify the exhibits that the Attorney General, let me first get the appearances of the Deputy Attorney General representing the people's interest, Mr. Mejia. I'm sorry.
No. Good morning, Your Honor. Alvaro Mejia, Deputy Attorney General, appearing on behalf of the Attorney General's Office in the interest of the public.
And good morning, Mr. Mejia. Good morning. And Mr. Drake, can you repeat your name again? I'm sorry.
Yes. Kenneth W. Drake on behalf of Leah French.
And Ms. French is present.
Yes.
And you might introduce yourself, I'm sorry.
Hi, I am Leah French.
Good morning, everybody. So as I mentioned, I'm going to go through the exhibits proposed exhibits that have been uploaded to the Case Center digital platform, and I'm following a list that I have that indexes the documents as sequenced in Case Center. And I'm going to just quickly go through these. And correct me if I'm wrong, counsel, Mr. Mejia or Mr. Drake. So the Attorney General's evidence, proposed evidence, consists of 4 proposed exhibits, 1 through 4, sequenced in Case Center as A1 through A39. Exhibit 1 is the jurisdictional documents. Exhibit 2 is the license certification. Exhibit 3 is the decision in order in the matter that's at hand. And petitioner's evidence consists of exhibits A as sequenced in Case Center, proposed exhibits A through O, B1 through B37. So at this point, I'm going to ask counsel if, for the Attorney General, Mr. Mejia, if the Attorney General's proposed exhibits you're offering into the record?
Yes, Your Honor. The only thing I will, counsel for petitioner did highlight that there are a couple couple errors in the probation report, which is AG Exhibit 4, and I can highlight those for the record.
Yeah.
once
Why don't we do that now, since so in case I forget or you forget. So Exhibit 4.
Yes, Your Honor.
Go ahead.
Exhibit 4, under the section registration license history, just misidentifies petitioner's license. Petitioner holds a marriage and family therapist license. And then in the tolling history, also misidentifies petitioner's license incorrectly as a clinical social worker. Petitioner has an MFT license.
Okay, thank you. And is that correct, Mr. Drake?
Yes.
Okay. So, you're offering exhibits 1 through 4. Exhibit 1 as a jurisdictional document. Any objection from petitioner?
No objections.
Exhibits 1 through 4 admitted. Exhibit 1 admitted for jurisdictional purposes. And petitioner's exhibits, as marked, as I indicated, consists of A through O. And are you offering these at this time, Mr. Drake?
I'm sorry?
Are you offering these exhibits into the administrative record?
Yes, indeed, as indicated, yes.
I'm sorry, sir, administrative hearing record. So any objection, Mr. Mejia?
Only as to the reference letters, no objection as to administrative hearing.
So, and do you wish, Mr. Drake, that they be considered for anything more than administrative hearsay?
No, I will agree with that at this point.
Okay. So exhibits A through O are admitted. The reference letters are admitted as administrative hearsay pursuant to Government Code Section 11513, Subdivision D. Any other documents, Mr. Mejia?
No, Your Honor.
Any other documents, Mr. Drake?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, so with that, Mr. Mejia, do you wish to make any kind of statement in this matter?
Your Honor, I'll just make a brief summary as to how we got here for the benefit of the board members. Petitioner was issued a marriage and family therapist license November 18, 2016. The license is current and in effect, set to expire August 31, 2024. At some point during her licensing history, petitioner changed her legal name from Leah Lynn Miner, M-I-N-E-R, to Leah Lynn French. With respect to the disciplinary history, petitioner was convicted on November 9, 2017 of one misdemeanor count of driving under the influence with two special allegations, one being that her blood alcohol content level was above a 0.15%, and the second special allegation that there was a minor under the age of 14 in the vehicle while she was driving under the influence. She was placed on probation for 3 years on terms and conditions. On March 16, 2018, her formal probation in the criminal case was converted to conditional revocable release, which is lesser than formal probation. As a result of the conviction, petitioner was placed on probation effective January 10, 2019. There was a tolling period during her probationary period, and her probation is currently set to expire January 4, 2026. The circumstances surrounding the conviction was that on September 7, 2017, petitioner was involved in a traffic collision with her then 2.5-year-old child in the vehicle. Petitioner showed signs of alcohol intoxication and failed a standard field sobriety test. And during the course of the police investigation, her blood alcohol content level was at 0.21%. Part of the petition process, petitioner submitted a petition packet, and part of the AG's documents include a probation summary report, which indicates that petitioner has been compliant with the terms of probation, indicates that she's been fully compliant with the biological fluid testing, testing 36 times per year, fully compliant with the psychotherapy requirements, which were reduced to once per month on February 4th, 2020, fully compliant with dependency support program, attends twice per week, completed her remedial education requirements on July 29, 2019, has fully paid cost recovery in the disciplinary matter as of December 14, 2022, and is compliant with standard terms and conditions, including quarterly reports. And for the benefit of the record, I'll just point out that the AG's office prepared the exhibits, uploaded the documents to the Case Center platform, and our office coordinated with liaison for the agency to ensure that the members of the board have the same version of the documents that have been uploaded, which are Bates labeled for ease of reference today, because my understanding is the members of the board are not participating through the Case Center platform, but they have the same version of our documents, and that's all I have, Your Honor.
Okay, well, thank you, Mr. Mejia. Mr. Drake, how would you like to proceed, sir?
Well, again, as suggested in the packet that we presented, Leah French has dealt with this very unfortunate singular event in her life and has essentially checked all of the boxes. She has essentially turned her life around as a result of this event. There had been nothing preceding the event in September of 2017. She has, in fact, continued to work through during the early stages of the probation. She did have a period of time when she was, in fact, had to toll because she was sick with believed to be a COVID and a long form of that. She also, during that time frame, has basically participated in educational programs, has done everything required of her, has basically, in the time that she worked after the probation, before the period of time that she was told, she, in fact, continued to work at Casa Pacifica for family and children. She is involved and is working and has established a very positive reputation in her community in Ventura County in terms of the work she has done with children and adolescents at risk for drug abuse and comorbidities, including mental issues and problems. She, while at Casa Pacifica, while on probation, not only served as a patient counselor, but also helped develop programs which are highlighted in the letters of reference that were referred to earlier, where she, in fact, created a pathway program that was adopted by Casa Pacifica, creating greater exposure for children outside of, at-risk children outside of the hospitalization context, and brought into Casa Pacifica with regard to the efforts on behalf of the children and their families, an AA program that was brought to that facility. There was a first there, and she has continued in the practice since coming back from her tolling period, which also included the birth of her second child during that time frame, and the creation of her own practice, which she is now doing as a therapist in terms of treating the children at risk, is the recipient of referrals throughout the county, working behind the scenes with regard to high school, boarding schools in the area, and is called, with regard to her special expertise in this area, dealing with is that us? No. Dealing with children with issues of substance abuse and the like. She has used this experience to turn around her life. She has not only done this in terms of her individual rehabilitation, which I think is readily documented. She has done this with regard to her family life, which is the foundation for the stability and, in fact, her ongoing work has been certainly addressed by this experience. She's uniquely qualified, and I think has demonstrated quite clearly that she is, in fact, not only rehabilitated, she has been sober since September of 2017, has no relapses of any kind in that regard. She has, in fact, completed, as was referred to earlier by the AGs, she has basically done all of those things that were required of her during the testing period. I would open up any questions you might have with regard to Ms. French herself as to any of the aspects that I've highlighted here. I can say in the time frame that I've worked, had board work, which is not my primary practice, but I have dealt with a number of issues in the medical malpractice area and defense and representation. And I can tell you that, and medical board matters as well, that I have never seen an individual who has worked so hard, dedicated herself to her family, her patients, and her community. In addition to her work that she does now in a private practice and consulting, she is anxious and wants to, and is uniquely qualified to serve as in terms of training those who would be seeking to get into this particular area of treatment of at-risk children. But of course, she cannot do that while she's on probation, and she's anxious, and the community will be well served by her return to ability to, in fact, mentor and guide others by way of the cessation of probation. And I would certainly invite questions
Well, here's my suggestion, Mr. Drake. It's probably not questions that the board would pose to you, but to Ms. French. So, in order for her statements to be considered, she needs to be sworn, and I'll swear her in, if that's okay. If you're
Absolutely.
calling, if you're okay with that. So
I am indeed.
Okay, so I'm going to just, so essentially, just for the record, I just need you to repeat your name for the record again, ma'am.
Yeah, my name's Leah French.
Okay, and please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm under penalty of perjury the state of California that the testimony you give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And I understand, Mr. Drake, is you'll just, at this point, we'll just see if any board members have any questions of Ms. French. So with that, did you want to say something? I'm sorry.
No, I wanted her to have an opportunity to speak to the board directly about what she's done, and I feel that this is an opportunity for her to address that. Any questions you might have on any of the issues that exist.
Which one? Who goes first? Okay, well, it's not, well, however you want to proceed. So, Mr. Mejia, I don't know if you wish to ask any questions first. I might have gotten ahead of myself here. In fact, I think I did get ahead of myself because I didn't give you the chance to ask questions. But she's being called. She's under oath. So, do you want to ask Ms. French any questions?
Before I do that, I defer to counsel. I think he wanted to give her an opportunity to present a statement or to give her her testimony to the board. So I'll defer to counsel, and then if I have any questions, I'll do that.
Okay. So, if that's correct, Mr. Drake, you
Yes.
want her to make a statement, and then based on that statement, Mr. Mejia will ask some questions, and then I'll see if any board members have any questions.
All right, go ahead.
Yeah, hi, thank you. I don't know that there's much to say that I haven't said in my statement, but I mean, first and foremost, I do want to acknowledge the gravity and severity of the incident that occurred in 2017. It was, I mean, beyond what has occurred with the board and my license and being able to practice, I mean, it shook me. Having my child in the car, and my child was taken away periodically, but I had a choice. You know, we do mental health work. I had a choice in that moment to go down and drown with the feelings and the awfulness of everything that was happening, or to really face and dig in and look. And there was things in my life. I was a single mom of a 2.5-year-old coming out of an abusive relationship, and I was in survival mode, and I had never dealt with my own wounds in that past, and having to be forced by the court and the family law court to do, I mean, it was before you guys even became involved in my disciplinary action. I had, you know, counseling that I did. I had a substance abuse IOP program that I did. I had all of those hoops to jump through, and really did take it very seriously. I mean, I don't know how many of you have children, but that's the moment for me. I mean, that is the thing that turned everything around. I will never, ever let anything happen to jeopardize my relationship with my children ever again. And then, as my disciplinary action came from the board, I was allowed to continue this journey. I mean, I started with a new therapist. It was unfortunate that I had to toll. I got very sick, was in the hospital with pneumonia in January 2020, kind of as everything was hitting the news in Wuhan, and nobody knew why I was so sick. And I ended up staying sick for about 1.5 years, but it kind of became a blessing. It was a time for me to slow down and reflect and focus on family, and really continue to build all of my supports in the recovery community, with my family, with my own therapy, to solidify my sobriety and the positive coping skills that I have. I went back to work so it was January 2022, and started my own practice. And it's been such a blessing. I mean, even as Mr. Drake said, before I told, I have used everything that I've learned to better my practice. he mentioned, I used to work at Casa Pacifica, which is a residential treatment center for kids 9 to 18, most of them coming out of hospitalization, suicidal ideation, self-harm, depression, anxiety. And a lot of them have co-occurring substance use, alcohol issues. But the program was not, there really wasn't anything that was being done that was recovery oriented. So I had my own, I had gone through this IOP program, I had done all of these things, and obviously I'm not sharing that with my clients, but I went to my team who knew what I was going through, and I started to build a recovery program there. And I still do that work. I consult with different boarding schools that are having issues with the way that substance use is impacting their residential program, and have helped them with classes. I've brought 12-step meetings to campuses, and so I do. It was a horrific incident, but it's something that I know has made me a better clinician, and something, like Mr. Drake has said, I'm eager to be able to work with associates and provide clinical supervision and share. I mean, I know that I'm an excellent child and adolescent therapist, and with a specialty of being able to address the really tricky alcohol and substance abuse issues that are out there. So that's my brief statement. I could probably talk for a while, but I will turn it back over to you guys.
Okay, so, Mr. Mejia, do you have any questions?
Just a brief question, and then I'll defer to the members of the board. Ms. French, good morning.
Good morning.
I've reviewed your petition packet, and one of the questions that often comes up is you've been compliant with the terms of probation. You've indicated that the program has been beneficial to you and professionally and personally. Can you talk a little bit about what are the benefits of no longer being on probation for you professionally?
The benefits professionally would be, as I've kind of mentioned, being able to extend my reach, being able to bring associates under me and train. And I know just from the amount of calls I get daily of people looking for a good child and adolescent therapist that's a specialty that not everybody has. And similarly, someone who knows the ins and outs of substance and alcohol abuse. Not every therapist knows that. There's a class that's required, but not everybody. I've seen lots of therapists that kind of shy away and don't quite know what to do with that. So while being on probation, that's a term of my probation, is I'm not allowed to provide clinical supervision. So that's something I would love to do that I think would benefit our clinical community and the public in general. So professionally, that is how it would benefit me the most.
Thank you. Nothing further, Your Honor, at this point.
Okay, so I guess, let's go off the record for 1 second. Okay, so with that, we're back on the record, and let's see if any board members have any questions, beginning with the board members on my left here. So, any questions?
So you mentioned that you wanted to provide clinical supervision. I was curious if you have done that in the past before probation.
Just a second, can you just please introduce yourself for the
Yeah,
record? So we know.
Apologies. Eleanor Uribe, LCSW, board member.
Hi, Eleanor. I have not provided any clinical supervision prior to this. I wasn't eligible because I had not hit the 2-year mark, but I've supervised staff not in the LMFT clinical supervision capacity. When I was working at the treatment center, I oversaw the PHP IOP programming. So I was not training licensed associates, but I was training line staff. So I do have kind of leadership supervision experience, but no, I have not yet. That was an opportunity that came, but then I was on probation, and so regrettably, I've just had to wait to be able to do that training and add that to my repertoire.
That's the only question I had right now.
Good morning, Dr. Annette Walker, Public Board Member. Ms. French, I appreciate your statement, your earlier statement, and your presence in the room today. Just could you expand on that? I wanted you to clarify your licensing and your training, just so that I'm clear.
Yeah, I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist. So I have a master's in counseling psychology. I completed all of my internal, I believe, licensed in, it was November of 2016. My specialty, before I even went to grad school, before I began the LMFT journey, I've always worked with children. I've started doing kind of in-home behavioral work. I did therapeutic behavioral services, which is a Medi-Cal specialty service. So I did a lot of behavior modification, in-home children, family, parent training. Then worked with the school districts in Santa Barbara County, did a lot of the education-related mental health services. And then that just was kind of the natural place I went back to. Once I finished graduate school, I worked with adult populations doing my traineeship, but that was never really my heart and passion. And so I've always kind of joked that I end up getting in more and more acute populations, but I think I am very gifted at it. I think I love working with kids. I don't think everyone can do the work with the suicidal teenager. It's very challenging, but I'm very passionate about it. And so I've had the benefit of I've worked with Casa Pacifica prior to when I became sick. I was with them for 5 years, and then I had actually worked with them in about 2005. That's who I was doing the TBS work with prior to graduate school. And they have excellent training. They have a full comprehensive DBT program. And so I've been very fortunate to be trained by some of the best in the state working with children, and then have started my own practice this last year.
Speaking of your own practice, I
Yes.
think I noted that you have a private chiropractic practice?
That's my husband.
Oh,
That's
okay.
my
So I saw the
husband.
letterhead. So,
Yes,
okay.
yes, that's his business. He's a chiropractor, so.
Okay, so you don't currently have
not,
your own
no.
private practice?
I have my own private therapy practice, Resilience Family Therapy. That's what, after becoming sick, that was part of all of my journey in those 2 years of being sick. Is I love the work with the residential treatment center. It was very intense work, and it was a lot. And having to balance my own health and well-being, I just decided, that was my journey, and it was time now. I have a 1-year-old and an 8-year-old, and I wanted to be with them more. I got to be with them for 2 years, and I thought, oh my gosh, this goes by so fast. And so I did. I launched my private practice in January of 2022 when I resumed from tolling. And I work exclusively with children and adolescents and their families, and I work 3 days a week so that I can be home with my kids the other time. And it's an amazing work-life balance.
Yeah. No, thank you for that clarification. The chiropractic practice kind of threw me off there.
Yeah.
So, okay, thank you for clarifying
Yeah.
that. And as a mother of an adult daughter and 2 grand toddlers, ages 2 and 4, I want to congratulate you on your newborn child.
Thank you.
And you're old now, I think you mentioned, your infant?
Yes.
Okay. So, and I'm only stating this because of the nature of,
Yeah.
your experience of what has transpired with your son being in the car when
Yes.
this incident occurred. And then the parallel between your specialty and the work that you do. So it's personal and it's professional. So I can see and feel your passion and how your rehabilitation had to be impacted by your son being in the car versus I hear you saying that you want to work with children of his age. And he's what, 16?
My son, he's 8 now. He's
8.
8.
Where am I?
He's
Where-
8.
Okay, I don't do numbers.
He
now.
thinks he's 16. And he got it
So 8 and 1, my apologies. Okay,
It's
all
okay.
right. You do the dots for me, thank you.
Thank
Connected
you.
the dots.
Your Honor, just briefly for the record, this is Mr. Mejia again. Want to point out that Board Member Dr. Walker, I believe, was referring to Petitioner's Exhibit C, which is the letter from Petitioner's husband, French Chiropractic.
Thank you, Mr. Mejia. Thank you, Mr. Mejia. So, I'm sorry, our next board member who has any questions, and please identify yourself.
Abigail Ortega, LCSW member. Thank you for your testimonial today. I'm curious about like what your relapse plan is, how we... Okay, put my mouth away from the mic, okay. What your relapse plan is, how we can prevent this, from happening again? What services would you continue if probation were to end?
Absolutely. My relapse prevention plan involves just staying connected with the 12-step community. I have made so many relationships in those meetings with those people. A lot of my friends have started sober living houses. Like that, I'm just kind of plugged into a very core group of people in recovery in Ventura. I've kind of had to pull back a little bit from participating as actively in person because I was starting to have clients, parents, and different, and so it became a little awkward with maintaining my confidentiality. So I participate in online meetings where I'm able to have a little bit more anonymity in those meetings. But as far as really addressing what caused this to happen, it was not having a support system. It was not being plugged into recovery. It was not paying attention to my stress level and having healthy ways to manage that. So, as I mentioned in my statement, I'm really passionate about even just physical health and exercise, and that's been the focus of a lot of my work with my therapist over the last year, is just what are ways, like when I feel that stress building, making sure I am checking in with myself early, managing it through exercise, through therapy, through connection with family and community and recovery, and not letting it get to a dangerous spot where I'm reaching to something to drink to manage it. I can say very confidently that that isn't even something that crosses my mind, but I'm also not so naive to, I know, just like anyone else, that's a decision away for me or anyone else in recovery, and I take that very seriously.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Our next member, if.
Justin Huft, LMFT member. Thank you for being here, Ms. French. This is not an easy conversation to have.
No.
So we appreciate you being here. You've talked quite a bit, as did Mr. Drake, about how your work has improved significantly. Can you give me a clearer idea of how your work now looks different than it did pre-2017, with maybe some very specific examples?
I think, working less is one aspect. being able to work 3 days a week instead of 5 days a week at an agency where I probably was working closer to 50, 60 hours. Just an intense workload. And working at the outpatient level of care is very different than working at the residential level of care. I love that work, and it's intense work. It's emotionally draining work. It's taxing work. And so I've been able to step back at the acuity level a little bit and work more as these youth are coming out of IOP programs and kind of help. And so that has made a remarkable difference, even just how much I'm holding inside. And then I'm able to kind of teach and consult a little bit. I've loved being able to connect. I've had these boarding schools just reach out to me themselves. Hey, we hear that this is something you have experience in. Can you help us? We don't know what to do. It's remarkable to see these schools that don't have any clinical staff. And so kind of taking more of that teaching role rather than the front line, someone coming from a suicide attempt out of the hospital. So I feel like the intensity of my work is mellowed a lot. And then, like I said, just even the FaceTime, the hours, the 3 days a week versus around the clock.
Yeah, thank you. And so what I'm hearing is that some clear examples of these structural differences, right?
Yeah.
Less work, a different environment, and different type of work. What I'm not hearing is that your actual therapeutic clinical work is different. And so maybe you can tell us a little bit about that, because you're sort of alluding to it, but I think it would help us to hear some very specific
The clinical work is
examples.
really very similar, though. I am taking everything I learned working as a DBT therapist in a residential program and just using that in outpatient therapy. I am a CBT, DBT-oriented therapist at my core, and no matter how hard I try, I can't really get away from that. And I think it's a very effective modality with kids and teens because it's very concrete. And so clinically, the work is the same. I think the risk level is less. I'm I'm uniquely qualified, having worked in residential treatment, then I'm not afraid to refer someone to a higher level of care if that's what I need to do. If I feel like I am not adequate at the one-time-a-week level, then I will do that. And so clinically, similar, I'm not an on-call crisis therapist anymore. That was something that was shared in a residential treatment facility, as we had an on-call phone that we all took a week throughout the year, and you had a rotation. So that was something as well. That's a huge responsibility. And so that I've been able to set boundaries in my personal practice and make sure they have resources that aren't me, that I'm not the only one 24 hours a day. So
Yeah, that's helpful, thank you. Besides supervision, do you imagine your job looks different in some way if probation is removed?
not remarkably different. I love what I do. I was having a conversation with my husband coming down here. As much as I want to do supervision, I love providing therapy, and knowing the number of hours in a day, my heart says, oh, I don't know if I want to give this part up yet to. So I will find that balance, but I don't see it changing tremendously. It's just that one piece of being able to extend the reach to others.
Great, thank you, Ms. French.
You're welcome.
Our next member.
Susan Friedman, public member. Good morning. Thank you so much for sharing your story. I know how hard it is, but we really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
I assume since you're working with children that you are not doing telehealth, that you are in person.
Absolutely.
Have you done any telehealth?
What's interesting with my journey and having to toll pretty much during the time period that all of us went to the telehealth land, I really don't. Every so often, if someone's sick or I've done a handful of telehealth sessions, but I think that is part of what brings people to me is kids and teenagers. I don't think it's very appropriate for the younger kids anyways, but teenagers don't want to do telehealth. They are so tired of things being online. They don't want to open and be vulnerable to me knowing that mom or dad is standing outside the door listening to everything that's being said. And so that's what's allowed me to be so successful in my practice is I get calls, are you in person? Because we can't find an in-person therapist. And so I have an office, I see people in person. And no, I was on medical disability pretty much the entire time that the whole world was doing everything in telehealth. And once I came back, I went back.
I assume since you mentioned mommy and daddy, do you tell them that you're on probation?
Do I tell the parents of my
tell
clients?
the patients?
No.
The parents?
No, I don't. No.
You don't?
No.
So they don't know?
No. I've never been aware that that was something I was responsible to do, if that is. I have just not, my employer knew when I was working for Casa Pacifica, that was part of the process, and I provided everything to them. But no, that's not a conversation that I have with the
You
parents.
live in a beautiful part of California. I'm just wondering what you're doing for exercise.
I live in Ventura County. I actually live up near Ojai, which I think is even more beautiful. And there's bike trails. I'm passionate about biking and running, and I don't get to do that as much with a little 1-year-old, but we got the jogging stroller and we're getting out there, so. Yeah.
Sounds beautiful. Thank you very much.
Yeah, of course.
Our next member, if she has any questions.
Thanks. Wendy Strack, public member. I was wondering, you mentioned you are in private practice. I assume you're just there by yourself. There aren't any therapists in your office. So do you have a group that you consult with or meet with regularly, just in case client loads or topics are overwhelming or you're not quite sure how, do you have kind of a consultation group that you meet with?
Absolutely. I kind of have two areas that I'm able to do that. I've maintained contact with two colleagues from Casa Pacifica in particular. Both have moved on to different places, but we meet regularly. My one is my former supervisor who a letter was included, Beth Burke. She's my go-to. She's kind of an expert in all things LGBTQ, so I have a lot of trans youth, a lot of issues even in how to work with parents, and she's my consultation person for that. But then there's also, I'm a part of a Ventura County Mental Health Professionals Facebook group where we all kind of refer to clients to each other, but there have been quarterly meetings where we come together for just that, kind of an informal, non-paid, clinician helping out clinician consultation group that I participate in, because you're right. I mean, I think that's probably the most challenging part of going solo private practice, especially having worked in an agency my whole life. I'm used to having that team. I'm used to having the consultation group, but that's also made it very easy to stay in contact with those people for that.
Thank you. Just one other question. So I'm sure in your 6 or 7 years of sobriety, kind of been in environments then where alcohol is present. So how do you handle yourself in those environments? No.
I consider myself actually very fortunate that I really, I mean, I know anyone could say this, but I really don't struggle with cravings and don't struggle. I conduct myself by not drinking. People know that I don't drink, but it hasn't been an issue, whether it's family members or, say a dinner and someone's having a glass of wine. That's not something that has been a triggering situation to me. And I mean, do I go to parties where that is the exclusive? No. I mean, I'm a mom, and that's kind of not my life. And so it's been an easy thing to do. I know that not everyone is so lucky, and so I consider myself very fortunate that this situation shook me so much that it just is not something that's even an option. I don't have that moment of, man, I wish I could. I'm glad it's behind me, actually.
Thank you. Thank you for being here.
You're welcome.
Okay, Mr. Vice Chairman?
Hi, Chris Jones, LEP member. Thank you for being here. I do have a couple of questions. I wanted to expand upon one of my other board members' questions that I'm not sure that you got to. What services would you continue with if you were let off probation?
Oh, I attend 2 meetings a week currently, and they vary. They vary, different AA meetings, NA meetings. That is something I will continue. I will stay involved in that probably for my lifetime. There's so much value in the community there and the support. And I feel, honestly, I will continue with my therapist. I meet with her once a month. We've developed such an amazing relationship. She's been very important for me, and I don't see that being something I just terminate just because you guys say I can. I think it's been something that has helped me on so many deep levels that those are the things that I absolutely would continue with.
And did you mention that you don't notify your clients that you're on probation?
No, I do not.
You understand that that's part of your probation
I
requirement?
did not understand that, no.
Thank you. No other questions.
Okay, Mr. Chairman.
Just a point of clarification, I want to read out loud the
Go ahead. I was going to give you the...
Yeah, the stipulated settlement number 14, because, and maybe this will end up being off record, but maybe a clarification is helpful. Respondents shall notify all clients when any term or condition of probation will affect their therapy or the confidentiality of their records, including but not limited to supervised practice, suspension, or client population restrictions. My reading of that is that if there are not client population restrictions, supervised practice, or suspension, that there's not a need to notify clients. But this is maybe a little vague, and a clarification would help on that.
I think you're correct, but I don't know if our also legal counsel or our honor would like to...
I don't think
expand.
I think that's something that the board needs to deliberate about. And certainly counsel for the board can weigh in on this. So that's something, let's table that, my suggestion, until the board deliberates.
Can I make a statement? That was my understanding as well.
Well, no, ma'am, no, that's,
No?
it's
Okay.
really not, I think at that point, and if
Okay.
council wants to ask a specific question or address it, that's fine. But this is really an area of legal interpretation that I think should be properly addressed in the deliberation portion of this matter. So, but thank you for that. So, I'm sorry, any other questions, Mr. Vice Chairman? Okay, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Your Honor. Thanks for the help with that as well. Ms. French, thank you for being here as well. Just one question, maybe I missed this, so I apologize. Do you have a sobriety date,
Yes,
which
it
is?
is September 8th, 2017, 9817.
Wonderful. Thank you. That was really it. So thank you so much for being
got it.
here. Thanks a lot. I'll pass it to my colleague.
Our next,
Good morning, John Sovak, LMFT member. Just to check, which pronouns would you like me to address you with this morning?
She, her.
Thank you. In your stipulated settlement, it does talk about education, and I see you put in notification about the education that you did, which was the online program of 7 CE units, and then the second one of 2 CE units taken in August of '22. I wanted to ask you, is that the education piece, or is there something else? And what was that, and what did you take away from those education pieces?
It would have been in my probation monitor has the record of the course. I can't remember it off the top of my head. No, those were additional CEUs. Those were additional CEUs that I've just done that address substance use issues. There was a course, an in-person course at Oxnard Community College that was, it was lifespan issues and substance abuse. It was something to that title. And it really, I mean, I took a lot out of it in terms of being able to consider the impact through whether parents, children, adolescents of substance use. It was a class that focused on, I remember doing projects on the different 12 steps, kind of doing a deep dive into that. It focused a lot even on development, stuff that I remember from grad school, kind of Erikson theory and Piaget and kind of the different lifespan development skills and the impact of substance and alcohol use. So,
because of your personal experience with this, is there anything less on that kind of clinical mind-based side that you're taking in, kind of that deeper level from this education that you're bringing into your practice?
The clinical mind-based from my education piece?
In other words, you're talking to me about you looked at Erikson and Piaget
Yeah,
and developmental pieces. Did you take anything else away from these classes other than just the science?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was being exposed to learning more of the ins and outs and why recovery programs work and what are the support systems that allow people to be successful. I mean, it's one thing to go through the steps of Alcoholics Anonymous with a sponsor who's not a clinical person, but to have to write a paper on it and really expound on kind of clinically how this is helpful and what is happening there and the vulnerability and the seeking support and the looking at your contributions to things. And so that's how I see myself using it in my clinical practice, is really working with teens like, okay, what is your part in this? Like, no, I'm not leading a 12-step meeting with my clients, but I'm pulling from all of that in a kind of clinical manner.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course.
our next member.
Good morning, Ms. French. Ross Ehrlich, a public member. Thank you very much for your testimony today. I don't have any questions that any of my other fellow board members haven't already asked, but I do appreciate the testimony that you've given, what you've said in your statements, and do appreciate the work that you've done and continue to do for the patient populations. Thank you.
Going down the line here, our next member might have a question.
Hello, I'm Kelly Renessinger, public member. I need to flush out this issue a little bit. I'm assuming you read through all your probation conditions.
Mm-hmm.
When you read through all of those, was there any condition or term that affected your therapy or your practice at the time that you felt would require you to notice your clients?
No. I mean, my understanding of even that statement was more related to for example, if I was required to be under supervised practice,
Yeah.
I would be disclosing client details with that therapist, so that would be violating confidentiality, and I would be obligated to let them know that I was doing it in the same way associates need to when they're under clinical supervision. So given that that was never a term of my probation, that's how I interpreted that.
I gotcha. Okay, thank you. And I just have a couple more questions. You're doing 2 meetings a week. You're meeting with the Ventura County Mental Health Group.
Yes, that's a quarterly meeting of therapists. That isn't related to anything substance recovery, but yes, consultation group.
But I'm assuming, you know, if the therapists in that group saw that you were
Oh, absolutely.
behaving oddly,
Yes.
they would be a further accountability prong.
Of course.
You mentioned you're likely to stay in therapy. So I just have one more question. And I'm trying to get the date straight. You went on probation 2019, and your sobriety date was right after the accident, I think
Yep.
you mentioned.
Yes.
And then you almost immediately had to toll from 2020 to 2021. Assuming your probation was progressing normally as it did, you'd almost be done.
I know, yep.
Yeah. And one last question. You mentioned you had long COVID.
Yes.
This board has seen a spate of relapses during that period from 2020 all the way to 2021. But you didn't relapse. Why? What do you attribute that to?
I attribute that to the strong support system that I have, the dedication that I have to my children, to this field, I don't want to lose my children. I don't want to lose my career. I want to do this work as long as I'm able to do it. And I know because of the clinical population that I work with, there are many people who struggled during kind of quarantine with those. And at the time, part of my relapse is I was really sick. I was recovering from the pneumonia and fatigue, and then I had kind of cardiac issues, rheumatological issues, and I was really focused on my physical recovery. Why didn't I relapse even despite that? Because sure, there's plenty of sick people who relapse. I just didn't have a need to. I have a support system. I have a great family. I have kids that are looking to me every day, and there's a lot of whys as to why I would never go down that path again.
Thank you, Your Honor. I have no further questions.
Well, thank you. Our last member who might have a question?
Yvette Caceres-Willis, I'm a public member. I don't have any questions, just a comment. Thank you for being here today, and thank you for sharing your story.
Okay. Yes, there's a follow-up question from one of our board members.
John Sovak, LMFT. Quick follow-up question. Do you have a sponsor?
Yes, I do.
And have you been a sponsor?
No, I have not.
Thank you.
Any other questions from any board members? Okay, so with that, do you have any questions of your client, Mr. Drake?
I do have a few questions. Thank you for the members of the board for inquiring and allowing Ms. French to tell her story. I do have a few questions with respect to your education. Where'd you receive your undergraduate degree?
UC Berkeley.
Okay. And, what areas of study did you pursue?
I have a bachelor's degree in psychology.
You worked at Casa Pacifica for what period of time?
I was there from 2004, 2005. That was the non-licensed portion, and then in 2015 to 2020.
Okay. And you left because of your illness?
Yes.
The COVID you talked about before?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. They held my position, and I'm welcome to return anytime. But
I was going to ask
Yeah.
you that. During the time that you worked there, you continued to work after
Yes.
the events in question and
Yes.
after the board's action.
Yes.
Okay. Who was your primary supervisor there?
My primary supervisor initially was Dr. Lauren Lawson. She moved on, and then I was supervised by Elizabeth Burke, and then Joshua Lepore was kind of the overseeing director of all the clinical programs, so he was a secondary supervisor.
And when this occurred, you advised these individuals of the board action.
Yes, absolutely.
And again, what was your understanding, it was raised earlier here today with regard to any obligation to tell patients about your take on that?
My take on that was that if there was anything involved in my probation that affected them in terms of confidentiality being violated, in terms of, or if I had to suspend practice for a month, I would have to tell them why I'm suspending practice. Or primarily it was the supervision piece. If I was asked to be under supervised practice, that was my understanding, that I would then have to share with clients, hey, your client information is being shared with my supervisor. I'm being supervised because I'm on probation. But because that was never a portion of my probation, I did not feel that was a necessary.
Again, all of the supervisors, as well as the director, indeed those who wrote letters on your behalf and as part of the record as hearsay information, they were all aware of your situation.
Absolutely.
Okay. And when you left from illness, were you advised as to whether or not you would be invited back to work there?
Absolutely, yeah. They still call me and want me to come back, but yeah, so I went on medical leave January of 2020. As of September 25th, 2020 was when they just finally said, we've been holding your spot, but we are getting in-person clients back. We need to hire a clinician if you can't come back. And so that's when I was officially kind of taken off rather than just put on leave with the open invitation to return anytime I wanted.
Okay. I have no further questions this time.
Any questions, Mr. Mejia?
Yes, Your Honor, thank you.
Okay.
Ms. French, I want to ask if you are currently assigned a probation monitor from the board.
Yes,
And who is that probation monitor?
her name's Amanda Cantrell.
When you were placed on probation, did you meet with your probation monitor to discuss the terms of probation?
Yes, we had an orientation meeting by phone in January of 2019.
And when you met with your probation monitor, did you review the terms and conditions of probation?
Yes, we read through every line of the stipulation settlement.
And if you had any questions, did you have an opportunity to seek clarification from your probation monitor?
Yes,
Is it your understanding, based on your terms of probation, that you were required to notify your employer that you were placed on probation?
yes,
And were you required to submit proof to the board that you had notified your employer?
I believe so. I believe Monetta Williams, who's the Director of Human Resources, had to submit a letter that she had received I had to submit everything, all of the court documents.
So is it your understanding that the employer was notified that you were on probation and that the board was aware that your employer was notified?
Yes,
Is it your understanding that a reference letter contained as part of your exhibits references that the board, that your employer was aware that you were on probation during the course of your employment?
am I aware that a reference letter references?
Yes,
I'm
sorry.
not understanding the question, I'm sorry.
So one of your letters, I believe, references that they were aware that you were on
Yes.
probation. Is that your
Yes.
understanding?
Yes,
Okay. During your meeting with your assigned probation monitor, were you ever notified that you were required to notify any clients that you were on probation?
no,
Your Honor, I'd like to make a representation to the court that I am actually in contact with petitioner's probation monitor, and Ms. Control has indicated that her understanding that petitioner was never obligated to notify her clients of being placed on probation, which is one of the topics that's been brought up today. Nothing further, Your Honor.
Okay. Okay, well, thank you, Mr. Mejia. So with that, unless there's anything else, I'm going to ask, beginning with Mr. Mejia, and I don't know if any of the board members, before I ask this, if any board members have any additional questions based on the questions of council. So any members have any questions based on the questions that were asked? So with that, Mr. Mejia, I'm going to ask the Attorney General to indicate what the Attorney General's recommendation is in this matter.
We don't have a recommendation for the board at this point. We'll defer to the members of the board. Thank you, Your Honor.
Okay, so Mr. Drake, would you like to make a brief closing comment?
Yes, I'll make it brief indeed. Again, I believe that the testimony of Ms. French has underscored her commitment not only to her personal rehabilitation, but her commitment to her patients and the community that she serves to provide safe and effective treatment. I think the reason that I wanted her to make the statement is to demonstrate the depth of her sincerity, not only as with respect to the issues of the past and rehabilitation, which she has done in a fairly complete fashion, and I mean a complete fashion in terms of never having a relapse of any kind or any issues in that regard. Obviously, the board is constituted to, in fact, to protect the patients of the state of California, not to punish, and in fact to obviously increase the benefits to the community of the service of competent practitioners. And I think there's little question as to her current competence and her commitment to personal sobriety, her family, her patients, and the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Drake. So with that, unless there's anything else, this matter is submitted. The board will deliberate, and a written decision will be issued. So I want to thank both counsel for their presentations in this matter, and I want to thank you, Ms. French. So with that, this matter is submitted and the record is closed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we're going to take a 10-minute break. If that's workable. If anybody wants longer break, please speak up now or forever hold your peace. And so let me get from our, I think I need to have the mic on with us, our court reporter, just the page count on this so I could prepare the form.
I have approximately 60
60 pages,
pages.
and we're ending at 10:23. And, oh, you know what? Let me get, at some point, your CSR number, too.
Sure, I can get that to you now.
I'll indicate. So it's Mr. Haynes, Jaron Daniel Haynes? And I got your pronunciation of your name correct, Jaron? Okay. So, so we're on the record, and I'm calling the next matter. This is before a quorum of the Board of Behavioral Sciences. Jaron Daniel Haynes, petitioner. OAH case number 2023-040-389. Agency case number 200-2018-001983. Today is May 4th, 2023. It is 10:50 a.m. And this hearing is taking place, as I mentioned, before a quorum of the board in the city of Orange. My name is Abe Levy. I'm an administrative law judge with the Office of Administrative Hearings. And I'll address any evidentiary issues that may arise and develop the hearing record, as well as give board members the chance to ask any questions. After the hearing, the board will meet in closed session and issue a decision. That decision will not be issued today, however. We'll start with the proposed exhibits that the Attorney General and petitioner, Mr. Haynes, have submitted through the Case Center online platform, which I believe everyone has been able to access. I'll briefly identify these exhibits and ask the parties if there are any objections and admit the exhibits as appropriate. First, let me get the appearances of counsel and formal appearances of counsel for the Attorney General and Mr. Haynes, beginning with you, Mr. Mejia.
Good morning, Your Honor. Alvaro Mejia, Deputy Attorney General, appearing on behalf of the Attorney General's office for the benefit of the people.
Good morning, sir. And Mr. Haynes, just state your name for the record, please.
Jaron Haynes.
Good morning, sir. So with that, I'm going to identify the exhibits that have been uploaded to Case Center. And I'll just note briefly, the exhibits that the Attorney General has submitted are as follows. Exhibits 1 through 4. A1 as sequencing Case Center to A31. And from petitioner, exhibits A through Q, and sequenced Z1, as in zebra 1, through Z148. So at this point, Mr. Mejia, does the Attorney General wish to submit into the evidentiary hearing record exhibits 1 through 4, with the exhibit 1 being a jurisdictional document?
Yes, Your Honor. I would like to highlight for the AG exhibit number 2, the license certification indicates that petitioner's license is set to expire March 31, 2023. I looked at the online record and it looks like petitioner has renewed his license and the current date of expiration should be March 31, 2025, Your Honor.
So I'm just going to indicate for the record, notice is taken based on Mr. Mejia's representation that the petitioner's license has been renewed through, give me that date again, sir, I'm sorry.
March 31, 2025, Your Honor.
I got that, okay. So notice so taken without objection. So then, as I understand it, you're offering exhibits 1 through 4, with 1 being the jurisdictional document. So any objection to that, Mr. Haynes, to these exhibits being admitted?
No.
No objection. Exhibits 1 through 4 is admitted, and Exhibit 1 as a jurisdictional document. So now turning to petitioner's exhibit A through Q, do you wish, Mr. Haynes, to offer these exhibits into the administrative hearing record?
Yes, I do.
Any objection, Mr. Mejia?
Your Honor, only as to administrative hearsay for the exhibits that are identified as letters, CVs for 2 of the letter writers, and the last Exhibit Q, the San Diego County Sheriff's Department security clearance forms, Your Honor.
So that would also be, your objection would be on, you're objecting on hearsay grounds, but only to the extent that they're being admitted for anything more than administrative hearsay, is that
Yes,
correct?
Your Honor.
Okay, including Q, right?
Yes.
Okay, and the reference letters. Okay, so Mr. Haynes, do you wish that these exhibits, that the reference letters and Exhibit Q be offered for anything more than administrative hearsay?
No, I think that's okay.
Okay, so the reference letters and Exhibit Q are admitted as administrative hearsay without objection, and otherwise Exhibits A through Q are admitted. And any other documents, Mr. Haynes?
No.
Okay. So with that, give me one second. We'll start with the Attorney General, Mr. Mejia. Mr. Mejia, do you wish to be heard at this point?
Yes, Your Honor. Just to provide a brief summary to the members of the board regarding the petition matter that we're hearing currently. Petitioner was issued a license to practice as a marriage and family therapist on August 21, 2015. His license is current, active, and currently set to expire, as previously mentioned, March 31, 2025. disciplinary action was taken against petitioner due to a conviction for driving under the influence of alcohol on November 7, 2018. The agency filed an accusation as a result, which resulted in petitioner's license being placed on probation for a period of 5 years under optional and standard terms, effective May 27, 2020. His period of probation is currently set to expire after May 27, 2025. The circumstances that led to, well, let me back up. Petitioner was convicted of driving under the influence and admitted 2 enhancements related to the driving under the influence matter. One allegation being that he had a blood alcohol content above 0.15%, and the second enhancement is that petitioner had a prior DUI within 10 years of this most recent DUI conviction. Briefly, the facts and circumstances that led to the driving under the influence conviction was that Chula Vista Police Department found petitioner intoxicated in his parked vehicle after reports of a DUI driver being in the area. As a result, petitioner failed standard field sobriety test, and when his blood alcohol level was tested, he blew a 0.161%. There is in the packet a probation summary report which indicates that petitioner has submitted to a psychological evaluation, which was completed November 5, 2021, that petitioner is fully compliant with his psychotherapy conditions and currently attends once per week, that petitioner is fully compliant with the condition regarding dependency support program and currently attends 2 times per week, that petitioner has satisfied the education requirement, and that was completed April 10, 2021, and that petitioner, again, is fully compliant with the drug and alcohol testing requirement, and the testing requirement is according to the report, between 36 and 104 times per year. That petitioner has been fully compliant with submission of quarterly reports. That petitioner has reimbursed the probation program and has paid $2,500 as of the date of the probation report, and that cost recovery in the amount of $2,045 has been paid in full as of September 10, 2021. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Mr. Mejia. So, Mr. Haynes, I'm going to turn it over to you. Would you like to testify, sir?
Yes, I would like to testify.
Okay, I'm going to swear you in. Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm under penalty of perjury of the state of California that the testimony you give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And please state your full name for the record, sir.
Jaron Daniel J.D. Haynes.
Okay, so what would you like to say, sir, in support of your petition?
I'd like to just thank everybody for letting me get this opportunity. I do take my recovery very serious. I've been working on it for 5 years. Right after the incident, April 7th, I started recovery. It's actually changed my life. I'm sorry. I think it's making me a better person. And I'm open to whatever questions you have.
So I'll start with Mr. Mejia, if he has any questions on behalf of the Attorney General. Mr. Mejia?
Just a few questions. The members of the board obviously have been asking questions of the petitioners today, so I'll defer to them in a moment. Mr. Haynes, can you address the board briefly as to why you're seeking to terminate your probation early in this matter?
Currently, I'm working at the County of San Diego Health and Human Services, working especially in mental health with the homeless. security clearance to go into the jails means you can't be on probation at all, any form of probation. And so I kind of, if to pick up clients or do anything, clients coming out of jail, I need security clearance. It also would help me, further in educational goals as well, as far as like doing CE trainings or anything like that, because I can't do that under my probation currently.
Can you clarify, are there particular courses or training that you seek to participate in that you're not allowed to while you're on probation?
Currently, well, I'm already certified to run the 52-week domestic violence programs, court-ordered, the stalking program, the 52-week child abuse program, court-ordered, and while I'm on probation, I can't run those programs until I'm off probation.
So to clarify, the restriction is on you running these programs, not taking them as an attendee?
Correct. It's for me running, being a facilitator of those programs.
Thank you. I'll defer to the members of the board for any additional questions.
Okay, so we'll start with questions for Mr. Haynes by the members of the board, if they have any questions, beginning with the member on my far left, and if you can please identify yourself. Thank you.
Okay, good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Eleanor Uribe, LCSW, and thank you for being here, Mr. Haynes. So my question for you is, so from what I understand, you made a comment that this has been life-changing. So, and this, in kind of going back, I believe it was the second DUI?
Correct.
So can you tell me what has changed from this time compared to the last time?
Well, I've had my son was born November 5th, 2017, so now I'm a father. So I'm taking that very seriously. But I've also, with my recovery efforts, I changed my whole lifestyle. I go to the gym for self-care twice a day, so before work and after work. I hang out with all sober friends. I hang out with Genesis Recovery. All like my vacations and stuff are usually with family or family friends that are in sobriety as well. So I'm taking it more serious because I have a son. I need to be a role model for him. I'm an African American. I want my son to see a positive role model in his life. That's it.
Okay. I think that's it right now. Thanks. Thank you.
Dr. Walker, any questions?
I have no questions at this time. Thank you for your being here today.
Thank you.
Our next member, if she has any questions?
Abigail Ortega, LCSW member. You mentioned that this experience has made you a better person. I'm curious to hear more about the therapist, right? How you've become a better person, therapist.
I'm able to, even with the homeless population, see how much pain they've gone through and how they're dealing with it. It makes me, I think, have more empathy for what's going on in their life. Even with the jail population, just what got them to there and actually wanting to help them as much as possible. Also trying to be a role model, like this is, you can get through this. And also, if I go back to groups and stuff like that, it's just being really empathetic for the clients. There's a lot of stuff going on with trauma and stuff like that that leads people into making negative choices and trying to pick themselves up and rehabilitate themselves.
Thank you. And like I, read in the paperwork that like at the source, right, of this DUI, what was mentioned was divorce and issues with custody, and I also, read that things have become more resolved as far as like custody arrangement and divorce. I'm just curious, like, how are you coping with with that, right, with those arrangements, and if there are any stressors now that could hinder your progress?
So there's always going to be stressors. I mean, it was a 4-year marriage. We're still not divorced. It's 5 years pending divorce, technically. But we do have custody orders in order. What I do is I have Dr. George Graham. He's been somebody that's been in sobriety for years and has gone through some issues as well with his licensing board, but I have him. I meet with weekly. I'm also part Native American, so I also use the San Diego Center for Native Americans, Dr. Decano. She works with me. I have Will Bridey, different things like that. And I used to use the court system as far as any issues with the ex-wife. Setting ex parte court dates or RFOs. I'm getting more familiar with legal paperwork now. That's the way. Just we have an app, texting Mac. I keep it very basic and gray rocking the communication with her, so there's no stressors. And then I also get a lot of enjoyment with my son. So I'm actually coaching T-ball. I try to use all my time to, be a part of his life, and that's part of my recovery too. Is I get a lot of enjoyment of being a coach out there.
Okay, thank you. And can you say a little bit more about the Native American Wellness program? Does that include a sponsor? I'm not familiar.
I use George Graham as a sponsor, but that's like during COVID they started like online programs, and they talk about native modalities and just different things, cultural things. It's about healthy living. It's not really based on AA type stuff. It's more on native traditions and stuff like that.
Okay, thank you.
Our next member who may have questions.
Justin Huft, LMFT member. Thank you, Mr. Haynes, for being here. As I said earlier, this is a challenging conversation, so we appreciate you being here. I'm wondering if you can go into a little bit more detail about what your therapy looks like today that's different than it, say, before your sobriety date.
Before sobriety, I had my own practice. It was JH Therapeutic, so we did stalking. I did all criminal stuff, stalking, perpetrator domestic violence, 52-week, perpetrator child abuse, perpetrator elder abuse, primarily groups, mostly men, but we did have females as well, all felony convictions. Oh, I did also have sex offenders. Once I received the licensing board accusations and I agreed with them, my practice was shut down, probation terminated all contracts. So that's when I went looking elsewhere too. Now I'm with the County of San Diego. And now I do specialty mental health, which is like dual diagnosis, homeless population mostly. So I work with a team of about 20 with 2 psychiatrists. I think there are 15 what we call licensed clinical staff, mental health workers, 3 or 4 nurses, and we're all working as a team to work with clients in the East County part of San Diego.
Great, thank you. So I'm hearing some changes to your work environment. We are particularly interested in making sure that therapists have gone through some sort of rehabilitation so they are less risky, more capable, engaging in better quality, safer therapy. Can you speak to that?
So yeah, I have Michelle Rabies, a supervisor. I have clinical staff right next to me, and we're in cubicles. So we do communicate, we do talk about cases, we do consult, even just how you're doing today. I have more people in my life now.
Great. And just to clarify, and I know the Deputy Attorney General's attorney spoke to this, you're talking about running CE courses, not taking CE courses?
Yeah, I was running CE courses at the same time. So for the 52-week programs, I was actually training. I had interns at one point in my career, and I would train them to do the 40-hour training. part of my stipulation, I had to stop doing that as well. Same thing with the child abuse program.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Haynes. No more questions.
Our next member who may have questions.
Susan Friedman, public member. Good morning, Mr. Haynes. Thank you very much for being here. I heard you mention a lot of your work in the jails, and I'm wondering if that's work that you will continue to do if your probation were ended.
Yes, I would be going into the jails. The County of San Diego's pilot program now for the homeless, for the governor, I forget what it's called, and I would be, going in, working with the homeless population and trying to get them into housing. It's kind of like care coordinating. It's not a lot of true therapy per se, like sit down, but it's like assessing needs, getting them refers to housing, different things like that, get them rides to, different things like that. Also sobriety type stuff as well, referrals.
So is this a population, an unhoused population that's cycling through the jails?
Correct.
So you're not on the street with the unhoused? Or are you?
Right now, I'm at what's called a clinic, so we do have people that are unhoused in East County. So there's some that come into our office and they're unhoused as well. But this would be actually like an addition where I'd be moving positions to in the jail and out the jail. We're working with the community, with the homeless that are incarcerated, to find them resources and housing and different things like that.
So you're paid by the county for your work with the jails? Because we know that the jails today are basically lockups for mental health patients.
I'm going to interrupt with respect. I think we're getting into sort of a dialogue that's not related to the criteria for rehabilitation here. And so please, I remind board members to just speak to the issues involving rehabilitation criteria. And I think it's fully in the record where Mr. Haynes works and what his job duties are. And he's already testified to this. So any other questions, ma'am?
No, thank you.
Okay, our next board member.
Wendy Strack, public member. I'm wondering if you could kind of share with us a little bit about how being on probation with the board has impacted your sobriety, positive, negatively. What parts of this process have been perhaps beneficial to you? Or what have you learned through this process?
It's stressful. I mean, you got to check your, even today I had to test. I mean, I live in San Diego, so I didn't have to test, but I had to check the monitor. So I got to go online, get ready, and I have a single dad now, but I didn't have to do him today. But so you're always stressed about the testing, but it does keep you sobriety. I mean, I don't mind testing. Just the payment does cost you some money. I mean, there's always that little stress when electronics don't work and you have to test, and the screen, because I do virtual sometimes testing, and the screen was popping off, and you're calling in, just making sure that you're in compliant. You always have that, but it does make you accountable, makes you think about your sobriety and what you need to do. It makes you, grateful to have your license. Like, this is a privilege to have a license and work with this population, so you don't take things for granted. So I think that's what has made me think about how grateful I am for having a license.
Then probably just one other question, like when you're finding yourself in environments where you're around others who are drinking, or perhaps you're avoiding those environments, but if you're in those environments, kind of how are you finding those situations and how are you dealing with them?
I've been every time you go to a restaurant, you're around it. So I don't have any triggers as far as I don't have cravings. I've been sober since 4/7/18. I've been around, baseball games and different things like that, and haven't had any issue with alcohol.
Thank you.
Mr. Vice Chairman.
Hi, Chris Jones, LEP member, Vice Chair. Thank you for being here today. Just a couple of questions for you. Can you kind of share with us like the insights that you have gained through this whole process of not just probation, but reading your story, it's very compelling. It seems like there was, I don't want to infer anything, but it seems like things were extremely stressful at the time of the second DUI. So can you kind of share with us your insights, what you've learned, and how that has impacted both your practice and maybe your personal life? I do understand the coaching part of your kids' teams as a stress reliever. Sometimes it's not, but a lot of times it is. So I would love to hear more about that.
Yeah, so I guess the divorce was probably the hardest thing I ever had to deal with. It actually gives me insight to looking at myself, how I was dealing with pain. When you're not able to have custody orders and you don't see your child for 6 months, it's painful. I mean, court, I don't know if people know the court process. Even though you file paperwork, the courts don't give you a court date for 6 months, and you're sitting there, just dealing with a lot of feelings and pain. So I think I was, or I know I was, using alcohol to deal with pain. So that's just a negative way of I was dealing with stuff. Now I know to catch myself, use friends, use recovery, have positive coworkers, different things like that that you can even talk to on the side about personal things going on. I do go to the gym, which is a training center, which is actually, it's not a recovery training center, but it's Chris Lieben, he fought in the UFC. He talks openly about his addiction. Now he opened a gym. So most of the gym is recovery-based people going there. So I go there 4 days a week. So I've really immersed myself in different avenues of recovery. So it's just, I'm not just, I do love my son's baseball, but you can get stresses from anything. Yeah, the kids it can be funny and stressful at the same time. They go run the wrong way and stuff. So I hope that answers your question. I don't know if there's more you want.
How has, just to kind of expand upon that, your experiences that you've gone through with, since the DUI and the probation, how has that informed your practice?
Well, like going back to pain, looking at a lot of clients dealing with their pain, their depression, hopelessness, and using substances to not deal with it. So I'm able to see that now with a lot more clients in just different ways, just in therapy as well. You see people dealing with their pain or trauma with alcohol.
Thank you. No further questions.
Mr. Chairman?
No further questions for me, but thank you for being here, for the work you do. So thank you.
Our next member?
John Somek, LMFT member. First of all, thank you for the amazing work you are doing in the world. Based on some of what you've been talking about, and it's in your file here, a question: do you view your work currently and going forward more as programmatic and design element, or actual clinical work?
I'll be doing clinical hands-on.
Okay.
I think about 50 to 90 clients on my caseload. All different bearings of care coordination, what we call it, from housing to resources to, I might have about 15 doing therapy, but it's psychoeducational therapy, I guess, because it's a little bit, I guess, like lower functioning, I would say, for some of the clients.
If your probation continued as it is, would those programs still be able to move forward with the other people in the organization, or would they be stalled out because of your limitations on what you can participate in?
The program wouldn't be stalled out, I would be stalled out, so I wouldn't be able to go forward. The program, they would just replace me,
Okay. Question, in your submission, you talked about working with 3 different therapists over the course of time. And I'd be curious if you could maybe help us understand what maybe you learned in each of those therapeutic settings with those different therapists.
All right, so I kind of started with Bob Henley, because what did I learn? He's a psychologist. I guess all 3 of them were PsyD psychologists. We worked on anxiety and depression, and different coping skills, and that's when I started going to the gym and different things like that. And then he retired kind of like during COVID time. And then I went to Dr. George Graham, and like I say, he also did get a DUI in his career. So he was actually able to be kind of like more of a mentor and talk about things. I even used the same defense lawyer as he did, you know, years before. And so he was able to, and he's still sober to this day, kind of be like a mentor or and somebody that could talk about more deep about my childhood and different things like that. And then I went to, the board had me go back to the Indian Center. Well, I chose to go back there, and I had Dr. DeCano, and we work on more on this depression, anxiety, and then also even, like earlier question, some of the divorce things that come up. So I always talk about different court dates to help talk about feelings about it and just troubleshooting about how I'm dealing with those things going on now with the divorce.
Okay. And I apologize, I did not ask you what pronouns you would like me to address you with.
He's fine, I mean, I'm fine.
Thank you. Also, too, you do report quite a few AA meetings. Do you have a sponsor?
Yeah, George Graham will be my sponsor.
Okay, and have you been a sponsor yourself?
No.
And if you were to describe where you've been on your journey through step work, have you applied that principle, or has
No.
that not been part of your work?
It's not been part of more like native wellness and just cognitive behavior. Like I go to the YMCA every day before work. I do my work. I have stuff there. I have people to talk to, and then I also go to the training center afterwards. So I always do that and have a plethora of therapists that I consult with about just my life or clients or just different things. So my life's a little different that way. I'm not isolated in my practice.
And then in the conversation today earlier, you said you do not identify triggers. Did I hear that correctly? You made us, in one of your answers, you said, I have no triggers.
No, I don't. I don't remember saying that, but okay.
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 Then let me explore this with you. Do you believe that when it comes to substance use that you may have triggers?
Yeah, I think you can have, like I said, pain it triggers me a little bit. You know, like if I'm dealing with pain with my son and custody issues, that could be a trigger. So I think maybe I was thinking about triggers like just being around at the baseball game. That's not a trigger, but it'd be more emotional stuff that's going on with the divorce or my son or custody issues. That's kind of a trigger for pain, you know, just custody time and stuff.
And I think as you were speaking, it reminded me that the scenario I believe you were talking about was if you were in a social setting and there was alcohol around you.
Yeah.
That there were no triggers.
Yeah, I'm not like craving alcohol, and I'm not like, oh, I have to drink or anything like that. Like at restaurants, I don't have triggers. Like I'm not sitting there looking at the table next to me going, oh, I wish I can drink or nothing. I'm just enjoying my meal and being fine with that. Triggers for me would be more, it's always about the divorce and my custody stuff, stuff like that.
Okay, thank you so much.
Our next board member may have questions.
Yes, thank you. Just a few. Good morning, Mr. Haynes. Thank you again for being here. Appreciate your testimony. Just a couple questions, and if you might be able to help clarify a couple things. Do you still attend dependency programs?
Yes.
At what frequency about?
I'm a minimum 2 a week. Sometimes I do 4.
Okay. Are there any other support programs or anything that you do as far as that, or is AA the main?
It's called Native Wellness, but yeah, the same thing would be my therapy sessions and George Graham.
How often do you attend therapy now?
Once a week. That's just on my, I think they reduced it from the board to like once a month, but I still go once a week.
Have you, I know that the incident that kind of brought you here today was a DUI. There was in your plea deal, there was an admission of a prior DUI within 10 years. Have you had either one of these expunged from your record?
No, I have not.
Okay. Okay, I think that is all that I have. Thank you again for your testimony. I appreciate it.
Our next board member who may have questions.
Kelly Renisinger, thank you very much for being present. I have no questions.
Our next member.
Thank you, Mr. Haynes, for being here. Thanks to my fellow board members. They've answered all my questions, so thank you.
Okay. Mr. Mejia, do you have any questions?
Just a few follow-up questions, Your Honor. Mr. Haynes, good morning.
Good morning.
Can you talk briefly about the security clearance that you're seeking with the San Diego County Sheriff's Department? Why are you seeking, and do you know if they're supportive of this process of you terminating probation early?
Yes, I know. I have a meeting with them on Monday at 1. The County of San Diego has been involved in my case the whole time. They were very clear to email my analyst or probation monitor up at Sacramento before I started, and they had made sure all the documents were clear and what I could do as job duties. But for this new job possibility, I have to be off probation, and then I still have to do what's called a voice analyzed lie detector test. Those are two things that were required if the board allows me to get off probation.
Would you continue as part of your sobriety, would you continue to attend support groups like AA meetings, even if probation were terminated by the board?
Yes.
As part of you being placed on probation by the board, did you have assigned to you a probation monitor?
Yes.
And did you keep in contact with the probation monitor to ensure that you were compliant with the terms of probation?
Yes.
Nothing further, Your Honor.
Okay, any other questions or any questions from the board members based on Mr. Mejia's questions? Okay, with that, anything else, Mr. Haynes, you wish to say?
Just thank you for your opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. With that, beginning with the Attorney General, with the question posed to you, sir, whether the Attorney General has a recommendation, would you like to say anything?
We will not present a recommendation. We'll leave it to the members of the board to determine. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Mr. Haynes, any closing comments you'd like to make?
No, just thank you.
Thank you, sir. So with that, unless there's anything else, this matter is deemed submitted. And as I mentioned earlier, the board will deliberate, and a written decision will be issued and transmitted to the parties. And again, thank you, Mr. Haynes, for your presentation, and you, Mr. Mejia, for your work on this. And with that, the record's closed and the matter is deemed submitted. So we're off the record.
We miscalculated a little bit the time because I asked Christina to have lunch after this second petitioner, and actually went a little bit faster than expected. So lunch is ready at noon, but if we start now, obviously, because we never rush, for those of you that are here waiting to be, we're just taking the time that's needed, but that we don't want to be an inconvenience. So should we do the break now and then we do lunch? You do whatever you have to do, and then you eat at noon, and we come back like after 15 minutes. Because it is a work lunch today, so it wasn't expected to be really like going out to eat.
If you want to do one more petition hearing, and this one took less than...
I mean, we could do that.
Or you could break, you could have a
Yeah.
See one more case.
We could do one more. I'm just trying to pick up and, yeah, and
Lunch can be a little bit later.
And I want to, go ahead.
So I shouldn't have a vote because I need,
yeah, bye.
yeah. So if you start again, should I leave now so I don't leave in the middle of this?
You can leave any, whatever you prefer. You're gonna be, yeah, because you're not gonna be in a closed session at the point, wouldn't make any sense for you to stay. No, right. No, if he start now, you can go now, yes. So I think we can do, yeah,
We do. I'm just going to use the restroom real quick.
yes.
I can do that.
Oh, in 15 minutes. So, everybody's confused. Everybody's looking at me. I don't know if these people are hungry or not. We also want to respect our petitioners' time for yourself too, so we're trying to. So we had to go there. So at that point, I would say we break now, and then the lunch is gonna be, right. So let's do this for the petitioner as well, I'm sorry. I hope you get to eat too, maybe. So our lunch will be ready in 15 minutes. So right now it's 11:32, so I will say we officially break now. The lunches, this wasn't going to be a big lunch. We never do big lunches anyway, but, and maybe we can resume at 12:10. Is that okay? Would that make sense? Is that enough time to swallow your food? You had it just.
And pray patience this morning. Let me just indicate that we're going to call the next matter, which is Leah Sue Edwards. And Ms. Edwards, again, appreciate your patience. So I think we're all set here. So we're on the record. So I'm calling the next matter before a quorum of the Board of Behavioral Sciences. Leah Sue Edwards, petition for early termination. OAH case number 2023-040-370. Agency case number 200-2020, 000-898. Today is May 4th, 2023. It is 12:39 in the afternoon, and this matter is being heard in the city of Orange. As I mentioned earlier, my name is Abraham Levy. I'm an administrative law judge with the Office of Administrative Hearings of the state of California, and I'll be addressing any evidentiary issues that may arise and develop the hearing record for the board and give board members the chance to ask any questions they may have. After the hearing, the board will meet in closed session and issue a decision. That decision will not be issued today, however. We'll start with proposed exhibits that the Attorney General and petitioner have submitted through the Case Center online platform, which I believe everyone has been able to access. I'll briefly identify the exhibits and ask the parties if there are any objections and admit the exhibits as appropriate. With that said, may I have the appearances of the Attorney General and Ms. Edwards, the formal appearances, please?
Yes, Your Honor. Good afternoon. Alvaro Mejia, Deputy Attorney General for the Attorney General's Office, representing the people.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mejia. Ms. Edwards?
Yes.
Just state your full name for the record.
Leah Sue Edwards.
Good afternoon. So, as I mentioned, I'm going to identify the exhibits that the parties have uploaded to Case Center, and I'll ask the parties if there's any objection to them, and I'll address any objections in due course. So the Attorney General has uploaded the following exhibits, exhibits 1 through 4, sequenced in Case Center as A1, to A331. Petitioner has in turn uploaded the following exhibits as sequenced and identified in Case Center, Exhibits A through U, A through double D, and as sequenced in Case Center, Z1 as in zebra 1 through zebra 80. Oh, no, yes, zebra 80, that's the Exhibit 20, Exhibit double D. With that, I'll ask the Attorney General if he wishes to admit the exhibits he has uploaded to Case Center into the hearing record and see if there's any objection to that.
Yes, Your Honor, I'd like to offer AG Exhibits 1 through 4.
And Exhibit 1 being a jurisdictional document, admitted as such, or proposed to be admitted as such. Any objection, Ms. Edwards?
No.
No objection. Exhibits 1 through 4 are admitted. And Ms. Edwards, you wish to offer at this time your exhibits A through double D, is that correct?
That's correct.
Any objection?
Here's objection, Your Honor, to any letters, particularly letters of reference. No objection to administrative hearsay. Petitioner does have, as Exhibit A and F, letters that she submitted. No objection to those letters since they're written by petitioner.
Okay, these are letters like statements from the petitioner, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, and no objection to those are admitted. So do you wish to have the exhibits that are letters from individuals you obtained admitted for anything more than administrative hearsay? I threw you for a loop on that one, right?
Yeah.
So-
I'm in agreement, whatever.
Well, I'll just briefly say what administrative hearsay is. Administrative hearsay is basically a doctrine, it's in the government code, that says that a document that's admitted as administrative hearsay can't be considered for more than evidence that supplements or explains evidence that's otherwise admitted in the record.
Okay.
And that's my squib on that, and then we can all debate what the heck that means. But that's what that is.
Thank you.
So I hear no objection to that. And so exhibits A through double D are admitted, and the letters admitted as administrative hearsay without objection. With that, I'll start with the Attorney General and ask Mr. Mejia, do you wish to be heard at this point?
Yes, Your Honor, just briefly to provide a summary of why we're here today to hear Ms. Edwards' petition. Petitioner was issued an Associate Marriage and Family Therapist registration on January 14, 2017. That registration was subsequently canceled, and petitioner was then issued was licensed as a marriage and family therapist September 10, 2021. That license is current, active, and currently set to expire September 30, 2023. Regarding petitioner's disciplinary history, action was taken against petitioner for a conviction for driving under the influence. The conviction occurred May 13, 2019. As stated, for driving under the influence, and an based on that conviction, and one of the allegations that was included in that accusation was that petitioner failed to report the conviction to the board. Subsequently, stipulated agreement was entered into between the board and petitioner, which placed her on probation for 5 years, including standard and optional terms effective May 27, 2020, and currently petitioner's probation is set to expire after May 27, 2025. Briefly, the circumstances that led to petitioner's conviction was that on February 7, 2019, petitioner rear-ended a vehicle while driving under the influence and failed a standard field sobriety test, and subsequently 2 breathalyzer tests measured her alcohol level at 0.14%. As part of the petition today, the probation analyst prepared a probation summary report which indicates that petitioner submitted herself for a psychological evaluation as required by the terms of probation, and she has satisfied that condition. Petitioner has satisfied the psychotherapy portion of her terms of probation. All quarterly reports have been submitted timely, and she continues to attend once per week. Petitioner has completed the educational requirements that are part of the terms of probation. Petitioner is in compliance of her dependency support group requirement and currently attends 2 meetings per week. Petitioner has been in compliance with her drug and alcohol testing requirements and currently has a 4 times per month frequency. Regarding the quarterly report, she's been compliant. Regarding the reimbursement of probation program, petitioner has paid a rate of $1,200 per year and has paid $3,600 as of the date of this report. And finally, petitioner has completed paying cost recovery in this matter, which was ordered at $1,682. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. So, Ms. Edwards, at this point, this is your opportunity to tell the board what you would like as far as your petition and the reasons why your probation should be terminated. If you'd like to, I'll swear you in as a witness, and please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm under penalty of perjury of the state of California that the testimony you give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And just for the record, please state your full name.
Leah Sue Edwards.
So, Ms. Edwards, what would you like to say?
I prepared a statement.
That's fine. I'm sorry, just so, is that a statement that's part of the?
It is.
And so, can you identify, maybe Mr. Mejia can help, can you identify which exhibit this is so the members can follow it?
Exhibit A beginning with letter Z1.
Z1, okay. I probably could have figured that out, but thank you.
Just a point of clarification, Your Honor.
I'm sorry, just go ahead, sir.
No, do you intend to read it?
I was going to read it,
Okay,
yes.
so my only caution, I think probably Your Honor is going to make the same caution. If you read it, please read it very slowly, because a court reporter has to take everything that you say down, and if you get nervous, as people tend to do, they read really fast.
Okay.
Yeah, and I wasn't making a snarky comment directed at you, by the way, about Z1. I was just like, it was my own kind of trying to make sure I'm fully uploaded here. So it's Z1 is the statement. It says petitioner statement, so so there we go. It is part of it's admitted, your statement, so if you'd like to read it, that's I see no problem with that. So as Mr. Mejia said, just try to read it slowly so our court reporter can take it down. So you may proceed.
I would like to begin by thanking Your Honor and the members of the Board of Behavioral Sciences for their service and the opportunity you have given me to meet with you today. I applaud you for your participation in this process and your dedication to ensuring that licensed professionals uphold a higher standard of care in order to protect and serve the public at large. My name is Leah Edwards, and I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist. I went into the mental health field because of my own experiences with mental health and my desire to help my oldest son, overcome his mental health struggles and addictions. My passion has always been to empower others to improve their mental health, and I have not wavered in my desire to continue this path and to serve my community. Since the initial onset of my probation with the Board of Behavioral Sciences, I have had the opportunity to engage in deep and critical thinking about both the course of my professional life and my personal life choices. I have learned to move beyond the role of victim, resentment towards others, and wallowing in guilt and shame. I've obtained much needed insights, developed stronger boundaries, and healthier coping skills. I learned to face the grief and loss of losing my son to suicide, my pattern of self-harming behaviors,
and to face the consequences of the life choices that ultimately brought me before you today. I am grateful that I was given the opportunity to continue working in the field on a probationary basis these past 3 years, and also being allowed to complete my licensing in September 2021. I understand that my initial probation ruling by the Board of Behavioral Sciences provided me the opportunity to further grow as both an individual and as a professional. As stated in my packet for early termination, there are several factors that led to both my choice to agree to the Board of Behavioral Sciences initial ruling without a formal hearing, and to my current request for the hearing today to seek early termination of my probationary status. My full dismissal and court expungement being one portion, and my desire to be of service to a larger segment of the population being another factor. My passion is to serve, and while I maintain my gratitude for the ability to continue working as a marriage and family therapist, my probationary status as a licensed professional hinders my ability to serve as an insurance provider, and I want to make therapy more accessible to my community. I faced significant moments of tremendous grief and self-doubt since my DUI, and I was forced to dive deep into my own therapy and treatment with all the determination and strength I could muster. My intention being to ensure my own health and wellness in order to use my experiences, traumas, and both personal and professional growth to further support others. Through my experiences, I have both achieved and maintained my internal resolve to live a sober lifestyle of service to others. I've been in full compliance and adhered to all the legal requirements of my probation, including paying fees, fines, daily check-ins, and monitoring through the random drug screens. Paid for regular and frequent random drug screen and testing, a 30-day inpatient residential treatment program, outpatient DUI classes and treatment services, a minimum of 2 or more weekly AA meetings, a completed drug and alcohol remedial training course, a full psychological evaluation and assessment, weekly therapy sessions, weekly supervision, and quarterly compliance reporting. During this period, I also processed both my own personal experiences and that of my clients through an international pandemic. I experienced a historic challenge as I dealt with the impact of COVID both on myself, my family, my clients, and to the public at large. I carried numerous challenges regarding political upheavals, grief and loss of loved ones, and the inability to say final farewells. Relationship conflicts due to opposing beliefs about the pandemic, political unrest and discord, and all the other personal and professional challenges of daily life, all while adhering to the full requirements of my probation. These experiences helped me to identify my healthier patterns of growth as I have matured in my abilities to provide therapeutic intervention and treatment, and identify and respond appropriately to vicarious traumas. The difficulties that arose both financially, mentally, emotionally, and physically during this time period were numerous. But despite these challenges, I remain steadfast in my determination to follow the board's outlined steps, to take full responsibility for my actions, and to face the consequences of my decisions, and to both process and manage my complex grief in a healthy and balanced way. Outside the requirements of my probation, over the past 3 years, I have taken additional efforts to grow both personally and professionally. I began teaching as an adjunct professor, both sharing and growing from the course Contact on successful life skill building with topics such as taking personal responsibility, self-management, adopting lifelong learning, time management, creator versus victim mindset, emotional intelligence, and embracing a growth mindset. I began a regular daily mindfulness and meditation regime. I engaged in service with Alcoholics Anonymous as a secretary for several meetings.
I worked directly with a sponsor who helped me explore the foundations of the program of Alcoholics Anonymous, my personal relationship with alcohol, and prior resentments. I have established a strong support network, both personally and professionally. I addressed my medical conditions and began working on improvement of my physical health and wellness. I completed my California State Licensing Board test September 2021. I began actively working on my grief and life with Heinz Hospice, both attending support groups for peer survivors of suicide loss, and the Moms to Moms group, a group of mothers who all share the complexity of experiencing the loss of a child to suicide. At Heinz Hospice, I have built valuable friendships and engaged in volunteer opportunities at Ronald McDonald House for parents of hospitalized children. I was blessed to have participated in the first Heinz Hospice Grief Retreat, Nechama, for survivors of suicide loss in March of this year. I explored and attended yoga classes to work on improved health and balance, read literature including Recovery 2.0, Moving Beyond Addiction and Upgrading Your Life, and Not Drinking Tonight, a clinician's guide to helping clients examine their relationship with alcohol. I completed numerous trainings and certifications, including Mental Health Academy suicide prevention training, working with core beliefs of never good enough, Discovery Behavioral Health Families and Resilience, Self-Guided Foundational Safe Zone, Disaster Mental Health, How to Help in the Aftermath of a Tragedy, Combat Compassion Fatigue, Therapy Reimagined, and Taking the Panther Seat Gestalt-Based Practices Training, just to name a few. I completed a successful psychological evaluation and assessment and was given the recommendation that I be allowed to practice independently. And ultimately, I obtained a full dismissal of charges with judicial approval and a complete expungement of my record. While I cannot erase the mistakes of my past, I know that I have grown exponentially and have learned firsthand the value of setting and maintaining healthy boundaries, letting go of codependency and excuses, practicing acceptance and making self-care a priority. I've gained valuable insight into myself as a human, a woman, a mother, and a therapist. I've learned the importance of self-care within the physical, emotional, social, spiritual, and professional areas of life to maintain my overall being and balance. And it is with gratitude that I stand before the Board of Behavioral Sciences today for the opportunity to share the facts of both my experiences, my growth, my current status, and my hopes for the future. I humbly request early termination of probation so that I may continue to serve my community, continue to grow as a professional therapist, and continue to be a living representation of the human capacity to learn from our mistakes, to allow them to lay a foundation for growth, empathy, and ultimately a clear and direct path towards a positive future. I would like to thank my supervisor, Heather, who's here today, for her unwavering support, encouragement, and belief in both my abilities as a therapist and for providing me the oversight and opportunity to continue to serve the public and grow within my profession. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. I would like to thank my therapist, Mary, with whom I have learned to face the most challenging of my past traumas, grief and loss, and come into acceptance of my choices and behaviors that ultimately led me to my current circumstances. She provided me with interventions that have helped me stay motivated and determined at times when I wanted to give up. And she helped me learn to forgive myself, rebuild my relationships, and embrace and appreciate what I have over fixating on what I have lost. Moving my focus back to my successes and acceptance of what cannot be altered or changed. I would like to thank my community college colleagues, mentors, sponsors, and peers who stood by me throughout this time, believed in me, provided daily reminders of my resiliency, and kept me focused on my resolve and determination to walk day by day through adversity. These individuals reminded me of my tenacity and helped me find my way back to myself, both personally and professionally. And I would like to thank my son, Christopher, who wanted to be here today, but, and my other family members whose encouragement and unwavering support over the years had helped give me the courage and fortitude to keep moving, who remind me daily to remember how blessed I am with many who love me, believe in me, celebrate my successes and both value and appreciate my efforts and insight. Thank you for helping me to continue to work my way through grief of losing Aaron and trust myself and my abilities again. And lastly, thank you to the Board of Behavioral Sciences and to my monitor for giving me the opportunity to grow and to continue to serve others through my will as a marriage and family therapist. I thank you for this chance to stand before you today and share my case for early termination. Thank you.
Well, thank you, and I know you mentioned, you referred to her as your supervisor who's here today. I just want to recognize for the record, your supervisor is here, and just if she can just, stand so the board can see you and identify yourself just for the record, please.
Yes, I do have a testimony to give.
Well, we'll call you.
Heather Walker-Jan, she, her first.
Yeah, so what we'll do is we'll have her testify for you on your behalf after you've testified and the board members ask their questions and Mr. Mejia asks his, okay?
Okay.
Okay, Ms. Edwards. So with that, then we'll start with Mr. Mejia. Mr. Mejia, do you have any questions for Ms. Edwards?
No, Your Honor, I'll defer to the members of the board.
Okay, so we'll start with our panel members, beginning with the panel member on the far left. And if you have any questions.
No, I don't. This is Eleanor Uribe.
Okay. Dr. Walker?
Dr. Annette Walker, Public Board Member, no questions at this time. Thank you for your testimony.
Any question by our next member?
Abigail Ortega, LCSW member. Thank you for being here. Not sure if I quite saw, what's your sobriety date, if any?
I consider the last day. My accident was 2/7/2019.
And what services would you continue if probation ended?
I have the intention to continue with therapy. It has been vitally important to me, and I intend to do that. We've also talked about I will continue with supervision. It's a great opportunity to get feedback and engage with group. I also intend to continue with Hines Hospice. It's been very beneficial and helpful. Talked about doing the volunteer for the lost team. I also intend to continue with AA, especially the meditation group that I attend each week. It's an open group, and it's been very, very helpful to me.
Okay, thank you.
Our next member?
Susan Friedman, public member. Thank you so much for sharing your story. It sounds like probation has been very helpful to you, and I appreciate your being here. I have no questions.
Our next member?
Wendy Strack, public member. Thank you for being here and sharing your story. Just kind of two short questions, I think. One is, with your time with AA, what step did you find the most useful as part of the process?
Step 11, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understand Him, praying only for knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out. And that's been something that I've implemented daily. And that is something I plan to continue to carry with me moving forward.
Thank you. And what kind of support system then do you kind of have around you? I saw from your comments, I know there was, during COVID, you had a lot of challenges and you maintained sobriety through that. So kind of what does that support structure look like for you?
So I moved in with my parents. Besides this, I had to pay off my son's funeral. There was a lot of factors, but I've been living with them. I have a sponsor through AA. I also, she's also connected with Al-Anon, which has been very helpful. I have, of course, my supervisor. I have several members of the community college that have been wonderful, supportive mentors for me. I see one on a regular basis. She works with domestic violence women, very woman empowerment. I have another who actually lost her child in a DUI accident, and she's been an amazing support to me. She was actually there when my son passed away, and that's been really helpful, especially with the forgiveness piece. And I am grateful for those individuals. I have other therapists who've been with me through school and continue to be there for me, and I'm very grateful for those as well.
Thank you very much for being here.
Mr. Vice Chairman?
Hi, Chris Jones, LEP member, Vice Chair. Thank you so much for being here and for your statement. I have no questions.
Mr. Chairman?
That was predicted. Just an internal joke. Thank you so much for being here. As well, I don't have any further questions, but thank you for sharing your testimony and putting your hearts out there. We can see and hear that, so thank you.
Our next member?
John Sovak, LMFT. What pronouns would you like me to address you with?
She, her, hers.
Thank you. I noticed in your statement that you have quite a heavy caseload. I was trying to find the number here, I can't find it. What's your weekly caseload looking like these days?
Typically 25 to 27
Okay.
on average. Some weeks are less, but it's private practice, and most of those cases are higher functioning than my previous caseloads. So I enjoy the work, but on average, yeah, I get a regular 40-hour week.
Okay. And in moments where cases may feel overwhelming or triggering, what do you do with that energy at the end of a day?
We do talk a lot about that in supervision, vicarious trauma. But part of it is that my previous position, I worked in a very high-risk population, and the majority of my clients were very much like my son. Suffered with severe mental health issues as well as drug and alcohol addiction, and I limit that. I do still work with some trauma. I work with families. It's a variety, but again, most of it is not as heavy. And I talk about that with my therapist as well as my supervisor, and I have a really strong support when that comes up.
So let me be more granular with my question.
Okay.
It's a Wednesday, you've seen 5 clients, and client number 4 pushed some buttons, triggered you. You finish with client 5, it's the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
What steps do you take in that moment for yourself to reset?
First thing I do is a meditation. I start my day off with one, and typically if that happens, I will do another one. We have Slack. I'll be honest, before I'd ever see the next client, I'd Slack my supervisor. So I address it right away anytime something comes up for me, and we'll talk about it. We usually set a time right away. But yeah, first and foremost, I do my meditations. To be honest, I eat ice cream. Not gonna lie.
I am a supporter of that.
And, sometimes I'll go and I listen to music. That's another really big one. I write. Years ago, I wanted to be a journalist, so I do a lot of writing. My family makes jokes, one day I'm gonna write a book, so that's how I work through a lot of that and get it out.
Thank you. One other question. You had mentioned that you have started being of service in your meetings. I believe you're secretary currently?
I am not currently a secretary. Through the course, immediately following the accident, once I came back from treatment, it was about 4 months after, I think it was right when I got my 6th month, I worked as a secretary. I did again. Now my primary actions, I would say, I bring donuts and cookies and coffee, things like that. That is what I'm currently as far as contributing. But I have fulfilled the role of secretary 3 times over the last 4 years.
And do you currently have any sponsees yourself?
I do not have any sponsees now, but I do currently have a sponsor.
Thank you.
Our next member.
Good afternoon, Ms. Edwards. Thank you again for your testimony today, for sharing with us. I have no further questions for you, but thank you again for your testimony.
Thank you.
Our next member.
Hello, Ms. Edwards. Kelly Renner-Singer, public member. I really have no questions. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you.
Our next member.
Good afternoon, Ms. Edwards. Thank you for being here. I'm a parent, so I know that's hard. In addition to all of the rehab that you've done for work and, for yourself, I'm curious, do you have other parents? Are you in a support system for grieving parents?
That's the hospice that
Okay.
I joined. In fact, this coming weekend, I have
Great.
a Moms to Mom group. And it's been really nice. I've met a couple moms and we've gone out for dinner and
Wonderful.
plans for a movie. But yeah, that's really, ironically, my sponsor also lost a child. That's how she became my sponsor, is she told her story, and she lost her son 20 years ago, but there's still that relatable factor.
Thank you. I have no further questions, Your Honor. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Mejia, do you have any questions?
No, Your Honor, thank you.
Okay, thank you. With that, Mr. Mejia, starting with the Attorney General, do you wish to make any closing statements or recommendation regarding the board's action in this matter?
Your Honor, just a reminder that petitioner has a witness that I believe
Oh,
wants to testify.
you're right. Thank you for reminding me. I apologize. Is it Ms. Walker, was it? Okay. Ms. Walker, why don't you step forward and sit near Ms. Edwards, and I'll swear you in. You can identify yourself. First, please identify yourself for the record.
Oh, thank you. My name is Heather Walker Jans.
And I'm sorry, can you spell your, it's probably somewhere here, but can you spell your last name? Just.
Yes, last name is Janz, middle name is Walker.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, so I'm going to swear you in. Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm under penalty of perjury the state of California that the testimony you give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And what would you like to say, Ms. Jans?
I do have a testimony to read, and I will read slowly. Some of it is repetitive, but I just want to bring.
Is that, I'm sorry, but is that statement part of the record, just for our board
It
members?
is not. I have some copies. It's just to keep me on track.
However you want to proceed, and Mr. Mejia, do you have any thoughts on this? Do you want to, I don't have the capacity to kind of make it part of the case center exhibits, but what do you think? I think it's okay for you, first of all, I think it's okay for you to read. I'll give Mr. Mejia, without submitting the statement, I'll give Mr. Mejia the opportunity to weigh in on that.
I don't have an objection, Your Honor.
Okay.
If we can, I can figure out to make it part of the record, if it helps the members of the board. If not, we can proceed. There's a way for me to do it
Yeah.
during a break.
Yeah, we can't do it before the board deliberates. That's the challenge we face. So I think it's fine. And I think it's
It's
fine.
big printing, so I can read.
No, that's good.
If you'd like me to stop and summarize, you can stop me at any point.
No, go ahead. That's fine.
Okay.
Thank you.
I am a licensed marriage and family therapist. In the past, I served as a president for our local chapter of therapists and also for the grassroots committee for the state association. I currently own a group practice in Fresno, California, and serve on a board for local youth council. This is not how I imagined myself interacting with the BBS. However, I'm very grateful for the opportunity. What better way to learn than to teach, and in this case, to supervise? I am now very aware of the tremendous responsibility it is to supervise a therapist whose license is on probation. I've always valued the ethical and legal responsibilities of doing no harm to consumers in our community, so I've taken this role very seriously. Even though I'm Leah's supervisor, I've never tried to micromanage her probation duties or save her from the consequences she has had to pay. It is important to me that if I supported Ms. Edwards with supervision, she would take probation seriously and learn from her poor choices. From 2019 until present, Ms. Edwards has grown tremendously as a person and as a therapist. It was apparent when she began working as an associate that she struggled with time management, boundaries with work, and had symptoms of burnout. Leah was receptive to making change. However, she would need time to develop new habits. Ms. Edwards has excellent work attendance and has made great improvements in utilizing her time off and making sure to take vacations. I've had no concerns or issues with Leah calling in sick or exhibiting poor behaviors on the job that would hint to a relapse. Leah is a team player who always shows up to group supervision, trainings, and meetings. When we've attended networking socials at conferences, there have been no concerns about Leah desiring or actually engaging in drinking alcoholic beverages when they've been offered by the host. When I walk down the hall and I see that Leah has indicated on her door she's in a meditation, I smile. I can hear the meditation going. It is very different from how Leah used to utilize her time when she first started. In addition, Leah would share excitement and enthusiasm about how she's spending her lunch after hours visiting with her natural supports, seeing her son, attending her meetings, and building relationships with loved ones. I see signs that Leah participates fully in her AA meetings, as she might mention helping out with the responsibility from a meeting or bringing those meeting snacks. It's apparent that she really cares about the connections she has made there. Leah has shown motivation to improve clinically by learning to care for herself and reduce the amount of countertransference she may experience with clients. Leah enrolled in a training about appropriate disclosure in sessions and has productive discussions about this topic in supervision with me. Within the last year, Leah requested time off and shared with me about a mother's grief retreat she attended. Since working through her grief, Leah has expressed more confidence in supporting clients when they themselves experience grief or loss. Leah is compliant with making sure to tell each client about our satisfaction surveys available to them. These surveys have given valuable feedback about Leah's performance and judgment with treatment planning for her clients. The scores and comments clients have given Ms. Edwards have been overwhelmingly favorable, and anytime there are areas for growth, Leah is eager to take a new training and build on her education. Leah continues to utilize consultation and supervision time well, and I believe that she has built this as a new habit that will allow her to continue to make sound decisions. I see that Leah pays great attention to detail regarding changes within our field and asks a lot more questions than she did at the beginning of her employment. Leah is very concerned about making sure she doesn't misunderstand rules and policies and is now able to speak up when she needs help or clarification. As I reflect on Leah's growth, I believe that our community benefits from allowing her to practice as a therapist. I know that Leah understands the responsibility she has to do no harm. Leah has taken the correction of her behaviors and decisions seriously, and I appreciate the high standards our field and the board has to make sure that we have competent clinicians practicing in our state. Thank you for allowing me to share this testimony today.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Jans. Any questions, Mr. Mejia?
Thank you, Ms. Jans. Your Honor, no questions. I do want to identify Exhibit J, that part of petitioner's packet includes a letter from Ms. Jans, and because she's testified today, it's a letter that was submitted, looks like Fresno County. Just withdraw the objection and have that document admitted for all purposes.
So Exhibit J is admitted as direct evidence, and it was initially admitted as administrative hearsay, so it's admitted as direct evidence. So without objection, I take it. So no questions from Mr. Mejia. Any questions from any of the board members for Ms. Jans? Starting with, I'm sorry, go ahead, please, sir, and identify yourself for the record.
Hello, Kelly Renner-Singer, public board member. Ma'am, I just have one question. As the supervisor, do you have any concerns at all regarding the public protection of Ms. Edwards' withdrawn from probation?
I do not at this time.
Thank you.
Any questions from any board members? Okay, so with that, Ms. Jans, thank you for your testimony. And with that, I'll turn to Mr. Mejia on behalf of the Attorney General. Does the Attorney General wish to make a statement or a recommendation with regard to the board's action in this matter?
No recommendation, Your Honor. We'll leave it to the members of the board to decide. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And Ms. Edwards, do you wish to make any kind of closing statement?
I just want to say thank you for the opportunity to be here.
Thank you, Ms. Edwards. So with that, I'm going to deem the matter submitted, and as I mentioned earlier, the board will deliberate, and a written decision will be issued and transmitted to the parties in due course. So this matter is submitted and the record is closed.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ready to go on the record? Okay. So we're on the record. I'm calling the next matter before a quorum of the Board of Behavioral Sciences. Kelly Ann Janai Martinez, did I pronounce that correctly? Janae, I apologize. Petitioner petition for early termination of probation. OAH case number 2023-040-372, agency case number 200-2019, 002114. Today is May 4th, 2023, and this hearing is taking place in the city of Orange. My name is Abraham Levy. I'm an administrative law judge with the Office of Administrative Hearings of the state of California, and I'm sitting with a quorum of the Board of Behavioral Sciences, as I mentioned earlier. And I'll address any evidentiary issues that may arise and develop the hearing record and give board members the chance to ask any questions they may have. After the hearing, the board will meet in closed session and issue a decision. That decision will not be issued today, however. We'll start with the proposed exhibits that the Attorney General and petitioner have submitted through the Case Center online platform, which I believe everyone has been able to access. I'll briefly identify the exhibits and ask the parties if there are any objections and admit the exhibits as appropriate. First, may I have the appearances of the Attorney General and the formal appearance of petitioner, please.
Yes, Your Honor. Good afternoon. Alvaro Mejia, Deputy Attorney General, appearing for the Attorney General's office on behalf of the people.
Good afternoon.
Kellyanne Martinez.
Good afternoon, ma'am. I note that I should have mentioned earlier that we're starting at 1:25. So as I mentioned, a number of exhibits have been submitted by the Attorney General and petitioner. I'll identify these as follows. Exhibits 1 through 4 submitted by the Attorney General, including Exhibit 1 as a jurisdictional document, as sequenced in Case Center A1 through A30. Does the Attorney General wish to offer these into the hearing record?
Yes, Your Honor.
And any objection to these documents being admitted as, into the hearing record as evidence, Ms. Martinez?
No, Your Honor.
No objection. Exhibits 1 through 4 are admitted. Exhibit 1 admitted for jurisdictional documents. Now turning to petitioner's exhibits, I note that petitioner submitted exhibits as follows. Exhibits A through T, sequence and case center Z as in zebra 1 through Z107. Do you wish, Ms. Martinez, to offer these into the hearing record as evidence?
Yes, Your Honor, and I do have copies of a new exhibit.
And I believe I talked to you, Mr. Mejia, before we started, just as a background matter regarding this exhibit, and you, I think, kindly uploaded this to Case Center. Is that correct, sir?
I did, Your Honor. I uploaded the document when I received it yesterday. I coordinated with petitioner as best we could, given the circumstances. So that exhibit has been uploaded to Case Center as Exhibit U. However, that document did not make it as a copy to the members of the board, so I ensured that petitioner has copies for the members of the board, but it is part of Case Center, Your Honor.
Well, thank you for your help with this and assistance here to the board, Mr. Mejia. I want to say that. Did you, so the board members have this Exhibit U, is that correct?
The petitioner has copies
I'm sorry.
to hand out.
Okay, so why don't we do this, just so the board members have this in front of them as you're talking, because you may reference it. If you can kindly just give them the board members copies of Exhibit U, which I'll as identified. Thank you, Mr. Mejia. And it is in Case Center, so I'll just note it. Do you know the sequence on that by chance?
Yes, Your Honor. It is Z108 through Z111.
So 108. So we have through exhibits U through Z111. And what's its? How do you characterize this? This is her statement. She already said that.
It is, Your Honor.
Again, the upload thing. Okay. Is there an extra copy so I have it, so I can, if there is one around there? No, it's okay, because I just want to follow along. Thank you. Okay, so exhibits A through U, any objection, Mr. Mejia? As off. And the letters from different individuals, do you wish to have these offered for anything more than administrative hearsay, Ms. Martinez?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, so exhibits A through U are admitted, and the letters from individuals are admitted as administrative hearsay without objection. And as I note, Exhibit U has been, the personal statement from petitioner has been given to the board members as uploaded to Case Center. Just one thing here, sorry. Okay. So, Ms. Martinez, I take it you want to testify. I'll swear you in. And please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm under penalty of perjury the state of California that the testimony you give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And I think you were prepared to read your personal statement. Is that correct,
Yes.
ma'am? Okay, so you may proceed. And again, the board members have it in front of them and are able to follow. Anything else?
No, Your Honor, just if I may make just a brief summary of how we got here, just to...
You know, I did jump ahead of you. I apologize for that, and that's fine. So hold your thoughts, okay? Okay? So Mr. Mejia, please go ahead.
Thank you, Your Honor. To provide a brief summary to the members of the board with respect to the petition that's before you currently, petitioner was issued a license to practice as a marriage and family therapist on April 6, 2018. Her license is current, active, and set to expire November 30 of this year, unless she renews it. Regarding her disciplinary history, disciplinary action was taken against petitioner's registration due to a conviction for driving under the influence of alcohol. And she was convicted of driving under the influence of alcohol July 9, 2019. And that conviction included an enhancement that her alcohol level was above 0.15% of alcohol. The board and petitioner entered into a stipulated agreement on September 22, 2020, which included placing petitioner's license on probation for 4 years with standard and optional terms, which became effective October 6, 2020. Petitioner's probation was told while she was on maternity leave, and her current probationary period is set to expire, don't hold me to this date, the best I could do with the math is around after April 6, 2025. With respect to petitioner's probation compliance, petitioner successfully completed the required psychological evaluation on November 25, 2020. Petitioner appears to have fully complied with the requirement regarding psychotherapy and currently attends once per month. Petitioner appears to be fully compliant with the dependency support program requirement and currently attends 2 times per week. Petitioner appears to have completed the educational portion of her probation requirement on January 4th, 2021, and petitioner has been fully compliant with her drug and alcohol testing requirement and is testing at between 36 and 104 times per year. Petitioner is fully compliant with the quarterly reports requirement, and petitioner has also reimbursed the probation program as required and has paid $2,700 as of the date of this report. And finally, petitioner was ordered to pay $3,981.25 in cost recovery, and that amount was paid in full as of October 14, 2020. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Mr. Mejia. So back to you, Ms. Martinez. You've already been sworn, and I know you want to read from your statement. That's certainly fine. So, and the board members, like I said, have in front of them. So you may proceed.
Thank you. It says good morning, please disregard. Good afternoon, my name is Kelly Ann, and I am here today because I'm on probation by the board. I understand I'm on probation because I incurred a DUI, and more than that, I'm on probation for a series of choices I made that resulted in my DUI. Through my testimony today, I will address my adherence to all terms and conditions set before me and provide supporting evidence of my new lifestyle, which highlights my personal growth and my safety to serve the community without board monitoring. A term of my probation was to secure a board-approved psychotherapist and initiate weekly therapy. I am grateful the board approved Adam Smith because a therapeutic relationship we have built has proven invaluable in my life. Not only did Adam help me process my choices that led to my conviction and the aftermath, he has provided a safe space for me to rediscover who I am and who I want to become. He has supported my journey of self-actualization and held me accountable when the work became daunting and seemingly impossible. He confronted my distorted schema and supported the integration of my conviction into my identity through acceptance, self-reflection, and reframing my experience as a reminder to myself and as an opportunity to share with others that our thoughts, feelings, and actions are circular and have consequence. After 1 year of probation, I was given the opportunity to reduce the required sessions from weekly to the frequency my therapist believed appropriate. My therapist authored a letter to the board detailing our work together, noting no concern of alcohol-related problems, and attested to my not needing ongoing therapy for the purpose of substance use. My probation monitor reduced the requirement to monthly sessions. While some probationers may view therapy as a task set forth by the board, I viewed therapy as an integral component of my support network. It has become a part of my lifestyle, and despite the reduced mandate, I chose to continue meeting with Adam weekly and reduced over time to every other week. Currently, I see him once every 4 weeks and schedule in between sessions as needed. Abstaining from drugs and alcohol was another term, and it was accompanied by random toxicology screenings. I believe the random testing is the most effective method because if it were not random, I do believe there's a chance people could attempt to manipulate the system. When it's random, you must face this challenge regardless of if you're having a good day or a particularly bad day. It's inevitable that you'll be tested on a bad day, which creates an opportunity to utilize an alternative, healthy means of coping. Because I did the work, testing became inconsequential. I'm confident in my abilities because at the onset of probation, I was required to test a minimum of 54 times a year. At my 1-year mark, my requirement was reduced to 36, and this was a direct reflection of my compliance with testing and my abstinence from alcohol. I also had to participate in 2 dependency support groups each week. Traditionally, probationers attend AA. However, I understood myself well enough to know that a faith-based approach was not the most helpful tool for me. I petitioned to participate in SMART Recovery, which is self-management and recovery training, and my petition was approved. I quickly learned my choices to join the SMART community was the best pathway for me. SMART is an evidence-based program and implements a lot of CBT techniques and tools. What I found most helpful was the large community that's nationwide, access to a 24/7 chat platform, homework, and working meetings with helpful handouts. It has also increased my personal toolbox when facing adversity. An example is their tool called the hula hoop, and it's reframing your thinking into what's within your control, what's outside of the hula hoop is what you can't control. So refocusing your energy and attention on what you can control and to make those improvements. I was required to disclose my status on probation and provide a copy of the board's decision to my employer as a term of my probation. This requirement was an opportunity for transparency and personal accountability. I took ownership of my decisions that led to my conviction, presented them plainly to my employer, and the control was then in their hands whether to retain me as an employee and face any potential consequences. My boss, Connor Pierce, demonstrated great belief in me, my abilities, and knew my core values as an employee and a service provider, and supported me through this journey. He believed in me so much that with his help, my dedication to remaining transparent, and my increased knowledge and experience, I earned the opportunity to promote to unit supervisor of my division while on probation. My new role affords me some capacity to support improvement on team dynamics through effective communication, increased client-centered care, and training my team around self-care and the importance of personal growth and awareness. Within the first quarter of probation, I was required to research remedial education courses related to alcohol and substance use and draft a proposal for board approval. Following approval, I successfully completed all courses. This educational opportunity increased my awareness of substance use and my historical relationship to alcohol, as well as expand my scope of competence related to the public I serve. Every 3 months, I completed and submitted a quarterly report to my probation monitor outlining my adherence to all terms and conditions. This served as a regular check-in with myself and with the board about my progress and held me accountable for meeting the terms of my probation. I can address future accountability through my support network, sessions with my therapist, and continued regular check-ins with myself. Getting off probation is important to me because it would allow for the opportunity to supervise new generations of clinicians. As a result of my conviction, I lost this opportunity. and I believe the personal work I have done since my conviction has given me new insight and knowledge that I want to pay forward to new clinicians on their journeys. I want to bring my experience and associated thought processes to light and share them with other clinicians to help them grow and learn from my own experience. I want to be a support to new clinicians and help them discover their choices, their thought processes, and bring awareness to potential consequences, both positive and negative. I have developed a strong and diverse support system, which includes my therapist, Adam Smith. Finding Adam was a blessing and a benefit, as the therapeutic relationship has already helped me grow tremendously. The therapeutic relationship has given me space to do deep work, and our regular contact lends me to ongoing learning of self. I will continue my sessions post-probation with Adam, as therapy is not a task, but a part of my lifestyle. Other members of my support system include my colleagues, Laurel Melvin, Gretchen Forey, and Connor Pierce, all of whom are knowledgeable of my adversity and support my management of it. These are positive relationships as we have open and honest communication, and they demonstrate support during challenging times while holding me accountable. My fiance, Nick Markovich, is a strong supporter. Nick and I were longtime acquaintances and began our romantic relationship during my evolutionary phase when I had chose to abstain from alcohol. He has shared our relationship budding in sobriety, helped nourish it, and allowed it to flourish into the most honest, genuine, and healthy relationship. While he does have a healthy relationship with alcohol, him bearing witness to my non-existent relationship with alcohol, our time together does not include alcohol. Lastly, I have a support system because of the work I have done on my relationship with myself. The board can feel confident to terminate my probation early because I know who I am. There was corrosion in my thought process, and I stand before you a different person. More than ever, I honor my psychological health, and it serves as my home base. An early term of my probation was to undergo a psychological evaluation by a board-selected psychologist, Dr. Kaufman. His conclusion was that my conviction was a, quote, isolated incident, and that I did not pose a threat to the public. While this came as a relief, as it validated my core values were evident to him, I knew I could be better and wanted to do better. Dr. Kaufman's evaluation helped me see that I had the tools, but I was not using them. I have done a lot of work in therapy to unpack this, and I now know my core psyche. I have refined my toolbox and actively engage in healthy responses to life's challenges. Currently, I do not have a relationship with alcohol, only memories of a past relationship that I have chose to separate from. This separation occurred on May 23rd, 2019. And this is not in here, I just wanted to clarify for purposes of this testimony. I've been abstinent since my arrest, which was March 9th, 2019, but May 23rd was the date I consciously chose that I will no longer partake in alcohol use. So I called that my separation date from that. I can attest with confidence that I do not have a problem with alcohol. Alcohol serves no role in my life. There was a period where I had a relationship with alcohol and one that superseded my conviction. However, that time was followed by an evolutionary period where I chose to abstain from it because it was the right thing for me to do. During this process, I was learning about the negative association I had with alcohol and the damaging impact of this relationship on my life. I did and continue to do the work to learn what my triggers are, to fine-tune my coping strategies so that I'm able to manage adversity with healthy responses, such as talking with my therapist, communicating with my partner or family, journaling, and engaging in self-care. I I told my probation from July 1st, 2022 through December 31st, 2022, as I embarked on the biggest journey of my life thus far, motherhood. I became a mom on July 5th, 2022, and welcomed my daughter into this world. My daughter is now 10 months old, and it reminds me each day how precious time is and how quickly it passes and how far I've come as an individual. I sought a new lifestyle for myself because I wanted to be better and to do better. I wanted to be a better person and a better clinician to the public I serve. Motherhood has come with adversity and trying times. Returning to full-time work as a mom came with its own unique challenges to overcome. And through it all, I have persevered using the tools I have refined, including daily check-ins with myself and communication with my support network. Becoming a mother, I realize more than ever, my actions, my thoughts, my experiences have a ripple effect. What I say and do has an impact, and I want my impact to matter. I want to lead by example for my daughter and live a life I'm proud of. I want to continue serving the community, to offer support and refuge, and use my experience to build rapport with those most vulnerable. My license comes with great responsibility, and my lifestyle is my commitment to protecting it and prioritizing safety to the community. In conclusion, I'm asking the board to consider my testimony and be given the opportunity to prove that my probation has been successful. I have successfully remediated and that I'm an asset to the public. With this positive journey of self-discovery on probation, I can assure the board my journey will continue and I can be trusted without the need for monitoring. I am proud to have the privilege of my license, and I'm respectfully requesting the Board of Behavioral Sciences, I can't see, sorry, grant my request for early termination of probation. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Martinez. Mr. Mejia, any questions?
Not at this time, Your Honor. I'll defer to the members of the board. I may have a follow-up question.
So we'll start with members on the right side of me to see if any board members have any questions. Any questions? We're starting on the right side.
Yes.
Starting with you.
I did that in purpose.
Hi, Ms. Martinez. I'm sorry, I was just taking a little break there. I don't have any questions because what you shared with us right now really demonstrates to me your rehabilitation. Thank you.
Our next board member, any questions?
Thank you. Hello, Ms. Martinez. So if probation is terminated today, you would continue in therapy, you would continue in the Smart Recovery meetings?
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes.
Any other programmatic continuance things that you would continue to do if probation was terminated?
I think the biggest thing I've learned is to listen to myself in that relationship. So continue that and checking in with my support network.
Okay. Got it. So you'd be checking in with your support network, you'd be continuing in Smart Recovery, you'd be continuing in therapy.
And I think regular check-ins with my colleagues has served invaluable. And so frequent check-ins with my supervisor and my colleagues, whether it's consultation or it's about my own feelings and processing the work, both professionally and personally.
All right. Nothing further on that. Thank you.
Our next member, any questions?
Good afternoon. Thank you again for your testimony, for sharing today. Just one quick question. I know you mentioned in your statement that getting off probation is important because it would allow you to supervise. Can you maybe expand on that? And is there any other reasons specifically why you want to be off probation early?
To supervise, so that's always been a goal. To clinically supervise has always been a goal of mine, even prior to becoming licensed. I was lucky enough to have really fantastic clinical supervisors throughout my traineeship and internship, and I've also seen the other side of that, and promoting as a supervisor in my job was very similar, that I wanted to kind of pay it forward and be a good supervisor to help people learn on their journey and be a support and a helping hand. And I, even while on probation, when I hit my 2-year mark of holding my license, I took the required courses to become a supervisor, knowing I couldn't do it, but I wanted to continue learning. And so when the opportunity presented itself where I could, I would have already started and were closer to being ready. And I'm sorry, what was your second part?
Any other specific
Oh.
reasons why you want to be off probation early?
I have one private practice client who was actually referred to me by a colleague. This youth was dealing with co-occurring depression and substance use, and my colleague referred them to me because of my experience and thought that I may be more helpful because I could understand through a different lens, and that my private practice is something I'd want to grow, and I don't think that being on probation inhibits that, but that is something I think capacity-wise would allow me to do. And even perhaps being on some different insurance panels to serve a broader network of people.
Next panel member?
John Sobek, LMFT. What pronouns would you like me to use for you today?
She, her, hers.
Thank you. Looking at Smart Recovery, it is a very CBT-based program, and there's lots of toolkits in it. And I was curious if you were in a situation where maybe there was some type of triggering going on, what would you say are your 1 or 2 like go-to pieces in the toolbox that really work effectively for you?
I think the first one is I use it for myself. I practice what I preach. Is the imagining of like a stop sign, like that very concrete tool of like, I need to stop, I need to take a step back, I need to breathe, and then, kind of collect myself and my thoughts and my feelings before reacting. I want to act and not react. And also, I think looking at things about how I feel and identifying more where they come from. I'm nervous right now, and where is that feeling coming from? And where is my, like the ABCs, antecedents and behaviors and consequences. I looked at that a lot through this journey. And I think that helps me unpack and reflect on my behaviors, on my feelings, and what has happened. And like I said, the hula hoop has really helped me. Is this something that I have control over, or is this something that I don't? I was put on probation, and with all of these terms and conditions, that piece was out of my control. How I showed up on probation, how I went through this journey, how I showed up today was within my hula hoop.
One of the very valuable assets of Smart Recovery is a hierarchy of values. And I would be curious if you were going to describe to us, what are your current hierarchy of values? And if this is not a part of the program you're comfortable or have worked with, just let me know that.
It's not one that I went to all the time, I think specifically, but I think for me, my hierarchy of values is how I show up, how I am present, and for myself, which was missing for a long time. how I showed up for others, and whether it was loved ones or the public that I served, was always a priority. But I often got missed on how I showed up for myself. I always took a back burner. And this journey has helped me focus that I have thoughts and feelings and need to process them. And I need to take care of myself to be there for others. And transparency, accountability. I always believed that I was someone responsible. This shook that. It took me a great deal of time, like I said, to integrate this in to who I am. It was something so far out of what someone may have expected from me or didn't think possible if they knew me. And so it really shook my identity. And through being very transparent about that and owning it and reflecting on this process and my conviction and my life, I valued myself more as a whole, as an imperfect whole. And I think sometimes this is overplayed, but I value resiliency. And I don't think it means you don't hurt or you don't feel pain or you push through things and just get over them. I think it's respecting the feelings that you have and respecting your experiences and giving them the space to be there and to let them come and let them go. And I'm still here, and I think that I'm a better person for it.
One of the things about Smart Recovery, as I know it, is that it is a harm reduction model versus an abstinence model.
I have to weigh in here, please, anybody feel free to weigh in, but I don't know if the issue of smart recovery is something we can delve in that deeply, where just me as a layperson can understand, just not that I'm the decision maker here, but if we're going to get more in depth with this, then I think, I don't know if that's all it's going to be that helpful. So why don't we, unless I'm completely missing the point here, I think we should just move around, but I think I've gotten just hearing it from where I sit, Ms. Martinez, the thrust of what Ms. Martinez is saying as far as the value of smart recovery in the program, but feel free to ask your questions, sir.
Judge, I don't think Mr. Sovic finished his question.
I did interrupt him because we're going into smart recovery, which I don't think, as I said, is really, the details of it are really not the issue here as I sit here as the individual developing the record. Because if we're going to get into this, I'm not sure it's going to be all that helpful unless I'm completely missing the point and somebody can tell me if I'm wrong.
So my line of questioning is looking at the idea that we are looking at a program that does use some different principles. So I'm trying to learn from our petitioner how they're applying those principles. And also in this particular question I'm coming to now, looking at the difference between an abstinence-based program, which says you do not drink, and a harm reduction model, which says you can drink in certain ways. So I think this is pertinent to our investigation of the petitioner and what we're looking at in the reduction of the in the petition before us.
Well, any other board members wish to be heard on this, but I'm going to let the board member ask the question, but I'm going to rule on the question, whether it's relevant or not. So any board member want to be heard on this topic, and I'll rule on the question after you pose it for the record, so the record's clear.
I agree with Mr. Sovic, and in fact, Smart Recovery is a program which, it is a harm reduction versus a complete abstinence model, and I think the petitioner actually mentioned that she chose to participate in Smart Recovery as opposed to a faith-based program. It's very germane to her recovery. So from a relevant standpoint, I think the question is very pertinent.
No, I also agree. I think also just for the clarity with the public, it's important to know that John has opened that door, that the board is not passing any judgment about one process versus the others, that we're not weighing in about this is better versus the other. It was just an assessment based on how we approach recovery and what it means in our journey of that recovery, right? There could be different things for different people. So I do believe that it's a pertinent question, but I also want to clarify that it's not a statement of positions versus one, to support one methodologies versus the others. I just wanted to say that. Thank you.
Anybody else want to weigh in on this issue? But, like I said, I'll rule on the, just as the evidence, as a matter of evidence, in terms of the inquiry there, after you've asked the question, Mr. Board Member, so go ahead and ask the question, and I'll make a rule on it. And Mr. McGee, I didn't give you a chance to get in.
I don't have a position one way or another, Your Honor.
I'm sorry, go ahead, sir.
So let me see if I can refocus my question. So some of the principles of smart recovery are that it is a harm reduction model, and different than other programs that might be abstinence-based. You have reported that for you, you are choosing an abstinence-based approach to this program. And I was curious as to how you came to that decision and how that influences your relationship to the smart recovery model.
How I came to the decision of looking at it from an abstinence stance. I think that was, again, kind of like that hula hoop, that decision was within my control, not necessarily how, like, the foundation of the program. I think people work it different ways. For me, this was the only option, because I had made that decision for myself that I would be abstinent and remain that way. That was just the mindset that I had going into it. So when I would participate in meetings, or when I do participate in meetings, when I do homework, when I do the worksheets, it's from their personal, and they're from my abstinence stance. And I use that in my professional world as well, that, you know, especially with the teenager that I work with, they engage in self-harming behavior. And they just had to restart their self-harm clock. And to me, there's authenticity in that they disclosed that restart to me and worked through it. And that often in recovery, it's not without relapse, but about how you kind of get back up from there. And that's how I viewed it, as a harm reduction, that some people may not be abstinent or make that commitment to themselves, and yet they show up to these meetings trying. And they restart their clock, or they want to continue to learn, how do I move from self-harm to abstinence? I weigh in based on my stance, and I stand behind my stance, and that has not changed my view of the program, only with how it applies just to me.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Actually, I don't have any further questions. I thank you again for being here. Thank you so much.
Mr. Vice Chairman?
Chris Jones, LEP member, Vice Chair. Thank you for your testimony today. Just one question. Can you give us some insight as to how this incident has informed your practice or changed your practice?
I think it's informed it a great deal. I have worked with co-occurring disorders for most of my professional career. I work with specialty mental health and SMI, severe and persistent mental illness, often with co-occurring substance use. And in the role that I had done prior to this, I promoted to supervisor of my unit when I was more direct line staff. We were behavioral health and recovery services, and the recovery services was lost for a great deal of time and focused on behavioral health and, the mental health component. And for me, going through this, there was a whole other part that was being overlooked. that the recovery piece, the substance use piece, was being disregarded for assessment purposes. What I did was field-based crisis intervention and 5150 applications for, danger to self, danger to others, and grave disability. And when we would get calls to respond, if someone said they were intoxicated or they're under the influence, a lot of people would disregard. That's not mental health. That's not mental illness. Going through this process, I have reframed that for myself and for a lot of my colleagues, and now for my supervisees, that it should not be withdrawn or thrown out, but looked at as a component and another or a facet of the assessment and of the presentation. Like I had mentioned also with the youth that I work with, processing with them about their substance use and where it comes from and what it means to them, where that became a coping strategy, and working on alternate coping strategies and different things like that. I have bared witness to a lot of substance use in my lifetime, and this process helped me see it differently. It helped me see it as something that there's chronic problems with that I have seen, and that sometimes it's someone's only known coping strategy. And it doesn't mean that it's their fault, but it doesn't mean that they should be disregarded for it either and overlooked that they still need help. Since promoting to this position, we have revamped this recovery aspect and are actually onboarding a recovery coach onto our unit to pay special mind to this component of mental health. And they will be directly under my supervision. So I will be in charge of training them about what their role will be and how they can be of service to the community.
Any other questions?
No, thank you so much.
Our next member, any questions?
Thank you. Wendy Strack, public member. I don't have any questions for you at this time, but thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Our next member?
Susan Friedman, public member. You've spoken very articulately about your the professional side of probation, and I'm just wondering, and a very quick question, on the personal side, is one of the reasons you want to end your probation having to spend more time with your daughter?
I mean, I want to always spend time with her. I mean, I'm sure that would be a benefit. I will say yes, and I never viewed probation as something that swallowed my time or an obligation. It was a natural consequence of a decision or a series of decisions that I made, and I gave it the respect and the effort and the attention it required, and I respected my probation.
Thank you.
Next member?
Abigail Ortega, LCSW member. I guess just to piggyback, you mentioned in your statement that motherhood has come with adversity and trying times, and that you returned to work full-time. Just curious, because you also said you're taking care of yourself so that you can be there for others. And like in your statement and just like the energy, everything feels like really like tense. So just wondering, like, what are some simple pleasures you're enjoying? Like you said that you do daily check-ins with yourself. Like how are you taking the edge off of like the intense work that we do in addition to motherhood, right? Which is what many say is the hardest job.
Yeah. Thankfully, I have a fantastic partner. He's a great dad and helps a great deal. He changes far more diapers than I do. I think simple pleasures, I get manicures every other week. That's my time. I like to go on walks. I go on walks probably every other night, most of the time by myself. And I've learned through this process and in therapy that it's okay to ask for me time, that it's okay when I need to decompress and to not be Kellyanne the mom or Kellyanne the therapist or Kellyanne the boss, that I can just be Kellyanne. And making that a priority, because when I make that a priority, it makes showing up in all those other roles much easier. And so I have learned to dedicate time to myself. And, you know, just yesterday we drove here with the 10-month-old, and we got here, we got checked in, and I said, can you take her for a walk? I just want to lay here in the silence for 10 minutes. And like I said, I have a great partner who allows for that and is very patient, and is a true partner. But I have built self-care into my daily routine to make sure that I am avoiding burnout and not getting overwhelmed by everything that I juggle all the time.
Thank you.
Dr. Walker?
Thank you, Your Honor. I want to kind of piggyback on what you just said in terms of the process. The board is here, as well as the service that you do, as to serve and protect. And it sounds like you've come a long way successfully in the process. I don't know if this is fair to ask you, but in looking back, given the board's terms and conditions and the monitoring, just as kind of constructive feedback to the board, is there anything that you would do differently in the order of what you had to do, or did you feel that the way everything was stipulated and set forth for you worked, you know, in accordance?
No, I mean, I think that it was fine. I think the first priority being finding a therapist. I had a therapist. I sought out therapy. I've been in therapy most of my life for various reasons and for just self-care. And I met with a therapist prior to this, but after my conviction, to help me begin the process of healing and working on it. But then, you know, finding a new therapist who I'm very grateful for, but I don't think I could have done the same work before. I think it set the foundation for the rest of probation, I think, the way it was designed. Finding a therapist, doing the psychological evaluation, doing the education. I wouldn't have minded, I mean, I do continuing education all the time. I think that more education, the better. So if that was an ongoing thing, I don't know.
Yeah.
And I also really appreciate I have a great probation monitor who was readily available when I had questions. I think that structure, that relationship right off the bat, built that connection where I knew I had someone that I could talk to, that I could trust, that I could ask these hard questions, and who would be honest with me. And I appreciated the quarterly reports as well. I do, if I had anything, I would say the quarterly reports are very objective, which I understand the part of that. And I do think there's benefit in the subjective and the narrative of what I'm going through each quarter, what I'm learning, what were my challenges. I could email her those or talk to her about them, but I could see that there's potential benefit in that along the way.
Well, thank you again, Dr. Annette Walker, Public Board Member. I appreciate you being here today and giving your testimony.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Last but not least, any questions?
Oops, sorry, I'll try to make it quick. No, we're at the end. This is Eleanor Uribe, and thank you for being here. I'm not sure if I heard right, but you were talking about some of the people that you work with, and you said that they sometimes have coping strategies, and you felt like it was not their fault, but I thought you were talking about substance use. Help me clarify that. Maybe
was it in my testimony or
No,
like
you
a
were,
response?
You were responding, but
from what I heard, but maybe I misunderstood, you said sometimes people have coping strategies, and I thought you were talking about substance use, but you said something about that it was not their fault.
Yeah, okay. I think that it's sometimes, like an example, in where I work, the community, there's a lot of methamphetamine use. And we get calls that someone is under the influence using methamphetamine and in a crisis and needing help. And where I have tried to reframe things for the team that I supervise is like, it's just methamphetamine. It's their decision. They did it. It's a waste of our time to go out there and assess them if that's what it is. And that way, it's not their fault. Like, if they shouldn't be disregarded for it. Their decision processes is not so black and white where they did this, so this, and we're not going to help them. I think regardless of choice, people deserve help, and to not so quickly write them off for checking a box that they have used substances. So not necessarily fault. I think that was maybe a poor choice of words. But it's not something to be discounted or discredited on the basis of someone being in a crisis or needing support.
Okay, thank you. And last one was, you'd mentioned the possibility of working, it sounds like you're actually working with somebody who was referred to you that had similar issues, you said, as yourself. So I'm assuming maybe substance, like drinking, or maybe DUI, I don't know. But what key points would you feel is important to share with that person?
So they are a minor. They do not have a DUI, but have relied on substance use as a coping strategy and continue to use substances when they are feeling overwhelmed and things like that, when it's a form of their self-harm in addition to others. I think in my work with them, one of the things that I highlight is that I don't shame them for using that coping strategy. My work with them is to not judge them, but to help them learn other healthy coping strategies, and like I had to do as well. I can't run and cry and hide from challenges. I have to learn how to face them well and in healthy ways so I can maintain my own personal health. And I think it's being present and not judging. And you engaged in this, or you do this, and therefore you messed up. You aren't doing well enough. You are bad. Those are all things I felt about myself when this happened. That I was no longer a good person. That I was no longer someone who should be respected or trusted. And a lot of my work has been integrating that into this doesn't define who I am, and helping them see that as well.
Thank you for your response.
Okay, any other questions from any board members? Mr. Mejia, do you have any questions?
Just one, Your Honor. Good afternoon. You testified regarding that alcohol is not part of what you partake in, and including the relationship you have with your partner. How do you handle either social or professional environments where alcohol is present?
When I spoke about my separation date from alcohol, it was actually my sister's birthday that day. And this was shortly after my conviction. And we were talking about her birthday, and she wanted to celebrate and have, like themed cocktails at her birthday party. And I was helping her plan it. And that was the first time I stepped back and felt it was unnecessary. And that I had been in situations in the last few months and in many, many times before where I was the designated driver, where I was you know, the quote, the mom of my friends who would take care of other people. And I realized and then that planning her party involved planning alcohol. And it just seemed silly that that was a part of the required planning. And that I said, you know, I don't need to be a part of that. That's not something that I want to, I'll plan the decorations. But the idea of partaking in it never crossed my mind. My arrest and my conviction in this process has been I was very shaken by it. And it changed me pretty immediately. But again, that was the consciousness of saying, this is not something I need in my life. And I have been around it minimally. Like my partner has chosen to not use substances in my presence or around me. And I told him that I'm not bothered by it, but he does it out of respect for me, and he has seen our relationship blossom in sobriety. We spent a lot of time right when the pandemic happened, just the two of us. We could not do anything but sit and talk, and they were sober conversations, and that was the foundation of our relationship. And I can't, you know, I don't know where we'd be otherwise, but I have such trust in myself and my coping and my support network that I don't intentionally be around it. But it's also not something that I am particularly bothered by. I have talked to my family quite a bit about this experience, and most of them, like my sister I would go out to dinner with her, and this is pre-probation, she would have a glass of wine and drive us home. And even after, and then after probation, she would say, there's no point in me getting behind the wheel if I'm even gonna have one glass. And my experience changed the lives of the people around me. So where they saw it differently and they interact with alcohol differently because of my experience.
Thank you, Your Honor. Nothing further. No.
Any questions based on Mr. Mejia's question from the board members? So with that, Mr. Mejia, do you wish to make, on behalf of the Attorney General, a statement or recommendation for the board?
No recommendation, Your Honor. Thank you.
Ms. Martinez, do you wish to add anything?
No, just my gratitude for everyone here and for your questions. I appreciate them.
Thank you, Ms. Martinez. Thank you, Mr. Mejia, for your presentations and your work and assistance, Mr. Mejia. And with that, I'm going to close the record, deem the matter submitted, and the board will deliberate, and the board will issue its decision and transmit that decision to the parties. Again, thank you for your presentations and your patience. You waited here all morning and to the afternoon, and like I said, you're last but not least. And thank you again, and have a good rest of your day and a good rest of your week. So we're off the record. The matter is deemed submitted.
Thank you. Wonderful for the matter of the records as well. The board is going to a closed session. We will re-adjourn the public sessions for tomorrow at 8:30 a.m. on this site. Thank you. For my colleagues, maybe we can